Number 10. Rogers. This alternate version of Captain America resided in Earth 311, the 1602 reality, but initially came from the dystopian future reality of Earth 460, where Purple Man aka Kilgrave had become president for life. As such, Purple Man had seen Captain America as one of the last remaining threats to his dictatorship, and rather than make a martyr out of him through execution, he sent him back into the past, displacing the hero. Captain America took a new identity in the reality of Earth 311, adopting the name Rogers, and used his opportunity to warn the First Nations peoples of the Americas of the risk posed to their existence by the settlers who would come. As Rogers, during his time on Earth 311, Captain America helped maintain peace between the indigenous peoples of the land and the Roanoke colony settlers. In this reality, Roanoke also never disappeared due to the fact that they had Rogers there to help them survive the harsh environment of their new home. Number 9. Iron Man. The bullet points version of Steve Rogers never became a super soldier. Instead, he joins Project Iron Man during World War II, becoming the first Iron Man in history. In order to become this new mechanical hero, he has to become surgically grafted to the suit. He would then fight during World War II and later retire but be called back into action to take on the Hulk, who in this reality was Peter Parker. As in most realities, Steve, even as Iron Man, is really no match for that hulking behemoth and ends up dying in battle against him. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want more lists like it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Age of X. This version of Captain America was kind of a villain, although it wasn't entirely his fault. He was led to believe that in order to protect the world, he and his team of Avengers would have to take out and defeat all of the mutants, which included Cap hunting down not just all kinds of mutants, but all ages of mutants as well, if you pick up what I'm putting down. This Captain America mowed down tons of mutant kind with a gun, including Mystique, who was guarding mutant children. Fortunately, Mystique with her dying breath causes Captain America to question his mission and doubt that his objective is truly noble. He decides to go against orders and instead fight alongside the mutants working to protect them. Cap dies a hero, taking on the Hulk, who decides to stick with the mission, calling Steve a traitor. Once again, another reality where it's Cap versus Hulk and Hulk just destroys Cap. Number 7. Union Soldier Steven Rogers. What if Captain America fought in the American Civil War? Well, you can bet this is the version of the hero that we would get. Steven Rogers vs. 717 is the character who first appeared in the What If Captain America issue number 1 out of 2005. Here we explore just that version of Steve, who served in the American Civil War as a Union soldier. In the end, he turns against his villainous Colonel Bucky Barnes, who in this reality becomes the supervillain White Skull. In so doing, Steven becomes injured and is taken in and saved by the Eagle Chief, Wee Piak. Not only does the Eagle Chief save his life, but he also grants him extra strength, transforming him into the hero Captain America, who is armed with a mystical shield, peak human physique, and reflexes, and is rumored to be protected against all harm. This version of Captain America fights hard throughout the years to make sure the United States is a place of opportunity for all who call it their home. He truly represents the Captain America ideal of equality. Number 6. Ultimate Captain America. In the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, Captain America is considered to be even more powerful than his 616 counterpart. The super soldier serum here didn't just prolong his life and leave him in peak human condition across the board, increasing his strength, speed, and durability, but it also gave him an accelerated healing factor and put him at a superhuman level when it came to his strength and his speed. It was once claimed that Steve Rogers of this reality could bench press a car. Across the board, this version could be considered stronger than the 616 version, although I would argue that 616 Captain America does have better leadership skills than our 1610 version. But that's just me. Number 5. Daken. I mean, we should probably get Wolverine and the rest of the mutant crew in the MCU first, but as soon as they are in, this is one of the people I want immediately thereafter. Daken is the son of Wolverine, who actually currently goes by his given name of Akihiro in the comics. Daken was actually a cruel nickname that Akihiro initially just adopted as his own. Daken in Japanese basically translates to cur or mongrel in English, and was used in reference to the fact that Akihiro was mixed race. His mother was a Japanese woman, Itsu, who was murdered before she could give birth to him, and his father was Wolverine, who believed that their unborn child had also been killed along with his wife, and therefore did not know that he'd actually been stolen and survived following Itsu's death, which was pretty awkward later. Daken was raised to hate his father and would grow up to become a villain and specifically an enemy to Wolverine. Norman would recruit Daken to become his stand-in Wolverine for his Dark Avengers team, which I love.
Number 4. Ragnarok. We've already had one Thor replacement on this list, but luckily the Dark Avengers were having a buy one get one free sale and threw in an evil cyborg clone as a bonus. Eventually going under the apocalyptic Norse moniker of Ragnarok, this clone was originally made by Tony Stark, based off a strand of hair that the billionaire stole after his first encounter with the Asgardian. During the events of Civil War, Tony unleashed this mad clone as a deterrent against the anti-registration side of the conflict, and received a ton of backlash when the clone wound up being more powerful than intended and eventually had to be destroyed by the god Hercules. Nevertheless, cyborg clones just don't die, and Ragnarok was given his new codename as a member of the Dark Avengers and lending muscle to Norman Osborn's new reign of terror. Could you imagine seeing this guy in the MCU? I'm sure Chris Hemsworth is down for playing double the roles, right?
Number 3. Moonstone. Moonstone is someone I've wanted for a while in the MCU. She's not only the Dark Avengers stand-in for Carol Danvers as their Miss Marvel, but has also been a member of the Thunderbolts as well. So it seems doubly likely that we'll get her eventually. Norman chose Karla Sofin to become his Miss Marvel after Carol refused to join Osborn's team. Karla also would become an antagonist to Carol herself, as well as having history with the Marvel name prior to that. I really am eager to see Captain Marvel and Moonstone face off in the MCU, so I'm really hoping that Karla does end up joining our new darker hero team that seems to be slowly forming. I can't wait.
Number 2. Mac Gargan. Spider-Man has had more than his fair share of animal-themed villains over the years, but few have had as many twists and turns in their persona as Mac Gargan, most commonly known as the Scorpion. Originally hired as a private investigator by J. Jonah Jameson to learn more about our beloved Wallcrawler, Gargan's rivalry with the Webhead ascended into supervillainry when he was paid $10,000 to undergo a procedure giving him all the proportional strength of, you guessed it, a scorpion. But that's far from the only name Gargan has gone under, as for a time he was also the host of the Venom symbiote, appearing much larger and more violent than the villain ever had before. This insane level of violence made it all the more worrying when Norman Osborn shrank down Gargan's symbiote so that he could more easily fit in as the Dark Avengers version of the beloved Spider-Man. Now, technically Mac Gargan has already appeared in Spider-Man Homecoming without any superpowers yet, but come on Marvel Studios, we need to see Nacho from Better Call Saul wearing a symbiote suit pronto.
Number 1. Iron Patriot. Yep, you maybe guessed it. Iron Patriot is probably one of my favorite Dark Avengers around and is also our number 1 spot. He also happens to be both the leader of the team and of Hammer, the organization behind the Dark Avengers. That's right, Iron Patriot is none other than Norman Osborn, who stands in as a version of the Avengers' Iron Man. Of course, he is much more sinister and obsessive than any version of Tony could ever be. And sadly, he also kind of ruined the Iron Patriot name. Poor Rhodey. Norman as Iron Patriot is not only a team member, but is also the one who ultimately decides who he wants on his team, recruiting other villains and turning them into alternate versions of superheroes. I also just selfishly want Norman Osborn in the MCU for Spider-Man because he's such a great villain overall for Spidey, but then again, he also has proven himself as a great villain just overall in the comics, so to see him as like a big bad would also be pretty cool. Number 10. Thor of the Thunders. Thor of the Thunders is also known as the man named Donnel, an old man who hails from the reality of Earth 311, the world often referred to as 1602, which was created by Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert. Thor of the Thunders was the godlike form that Donnel took upon slamming his artifact, a wooden stick, to the ground. The Doom of this reality attempted to steal this magical artifact but was unable to do so, as he dismissed the stick, which Donnel then used to transform into his Thor form. Thor of this reality is believed to be the god of storms, thunder, lightning, and agriculture. His very existence is considered very controversial considering the time period and the power and beliefs belonging to the Catholic Church. Number 9. Thunderstrike. Eric Masterson might not be around in the comics anymore, but when he was around, he was pretty powerful. He became merged with Thor Odinson for a time and at one point replaced him as Thor as well. Eric was considered worthy enough to wield Mjolnir, but is also known for his own specific weapon, which also inspires his superhero name of Thunderstrike. based on the Thunderstrike mace. Eric died before he could even fully comprehend all the power that the mace offered. One of the most powerful abilities it granted, though, in my opinion, was that of teleportation, allowing Eric to open up portals to anywhere he chose, even allowing him to travel to other dimensions, or possibly alternate realities. Trans-dimensional travel capabilities are always super OP to me, especially when they come from a time period where they weren't as clearly defined, meaning that they could basically be as limitless as the story required. Them's the best time for crazy powers. The times when we didn't have to define anything. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more like it, be sure to show us by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Asgardian. Billy Kaplan as Wiccan is definitely ramping up to be one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel multiverse, but before he was known as such, he went by a different name and style. When he was just starting out as a hero, Billy was a member of the Young Avengers, and inspired by Thor, took up the mantle of Asgardian, styling himself as such. The name didn't end up sticking, and only lasted for a few issues before he decided to change it to Wiccan in issue 6 of Young Avengers, which more suited his magic-based power set. However, it is important to note that Asgardians are known for being tied to magics as well, so while Billy was just starting out and the name didn't last long, in a way his magics do kind of tie him to the Asgardians, who are also sometimes known for being mystical. They are mystical, cosmic, and mythological, but it depends on the story as to which aspect is more highlighted. Billy, as Asgardian in this Thor styles, is really only being ranked so low for his lesser ties to Thor, but power level wise at this point, he's pretty off the charts. Number 7, Groot Thor. Groot Thor is one of my favorite alternates. He appeared as one of the members of the Thor Corps on Battleworld. Other than the reality of Battleworld, we don't really know exactly where he comes from. He could even perhaps be a combination of 2 alternate characters for all we know. Anything is possible on the patchwork world of God Emperor Doom's Battleworld. Groot Thor, however, possesses the combined powers of both Thor and Groot, presumably from Earth 616, which would make him pretty crazy powerful, as both of those heroes are capable of great feats. So combine their abilities and you get one strong and capable character. Groot Thor ended up joining up with Jane Foster, who is also Thor, in the rebellion against God Emperor Doom, whom the Thor Corps originally worked for. Instead of only saying "I am Groot," he instead only speaks the phrase "I am Thor," which makes me laugh. It's great. I love Groot. He's one of my favorites. Number 6, Rune Thor. Rune Thor is one of the alternate Thors who appeared on Battleworld as a member of the Thor Corps. His fellow Thor ended up turning against him after they realized that Rune Thor had turned pretty evil and was killing all the alternate Jane Fosters and Donald Blakes that he could find. Rune Thor proved powerful enough to beat and eventually kill, as a result of his injuries, an alternate version of Beta Ray Bill, also part of the Thor Corps, who was known as Stormbreaker Ray. Rune Thor, however, would also be taken down in the end by another member of the Thor Corps who was investigating the case involving the missing persons. The Janes, the Donalds, the missing persons. Number 5, Android Ultimates. The Android Ultimates come from Ultimates 3. They make their first appearance in issue number 4 of the Ultimates 3 series. This is where we first learn that these Ultimates aren't really the Ultimates at all, but replacements built by Ultron to act just like them. His plan is to use the team of robotic hero impersonators to destroy man and help the machines of the world rise up. Really all machines too. There's a weird part where they're talking about like, we as machines are just seen as these tools. Us toasters, we will unite. It's like very strange. Of course, the Ultimates themselves will have a few things to say about that whole plan. Ultron styles himself after his father, Ant-Man, but he and his team wouldn't make it past the next issue. It would later be revealed that their leader, Ultron, wasn't actually fully in control, but instead was being puppeted by Dr. Doom. So many reveals where people are actually being controlled by someone else.
Number 4, Undead Avengers. The living are not welcome on Earth 666, and the world is only consisting purely of the dead, undead, or supernatural beings. Vampires, werewolves, mummies, and more all exist here, and each group is divided into separate factions. But don't fear, the greatest heroes from across these groups are assembled together to protect this world. They are the Undead Avengers. This team is so cool. A Captain America who never recovered from being a werewolf, a part spider Natasha Romanoff, a devil Daredevil, a mummified Thor the Accursed who wields the backwards Mjolnir that casts black anti-magic energy, Vampire Wolverine, Were Hawkeye, Franken Castle? I mean, come on. These guys come into conflict with Captain Britain when trying to defend the Orb of Necromancy in order for them to spread undeath across all of reality, and they first appear in Secret Avengers number 33.
Number 3. Dark Avengers. The Dark Avengers technically hail from Earth 616, but they are a completely alternate team when it comes to their roster and in general their backstory and motives. Well, that is, in a way, the Dark Avengers do attempt to do good, but they are just all approaching it from a more villainous side. And many of the team members don't do good for the sake of doing good, but have their own ulterior motives. So can we really call that good? That's a philosophical question for you. The Dark Avengers were introduced when Norman Osborn was given reign over the heroic team after he'd been declared a hero for killing the Skrull Queen Veronki. Aside from getting to build his own Avengers team, which would replace the previous one, S.H.I.E.L.D. had been disbanded and Osborn was allowed to create his own organization to replace it, using the acronym HAMMER, which really doesn't stand for anything. Osborn just thought it sounded cool, so that's not really an acronym, it's just capitalized letters at that point. He pulled together his own Avengers team, which publication-wise became known as the Dark Avengers, composed of various Marvel villains, anti-heroes, and misled heroes in some cases, or heroes who were just like really lost at the time, who Osborn united when the standard Avengers hero members refused to join his team. He did try though. He was like, hey Carol, come be on this team. She was like, hell no.
Number 2. Zombie Galacti. I think most of us are familiar with Earth 2149, which is the home of the Marvel Zombie storyline. Here, a separate reality zombie-infected sentry was sent by his Earth's Watcher. The Avengers were the first on the scene and quickly died or were infected, with the rest of the population falling quickly afterwards. Once the Herald of Galactus, the Silver Surfer, showed up to announce the arrival of Galactus, he was consumed by Hulk, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Giant Man, Power Man, and Captain America, who absorbed his powers and used it to toast other zombies to improve their flavor. Gordon Ramsay would not approve. The Zombie Galacti used the machine to unite their power cosmic to take down Galactus, and after fighting their zombie villains, consumed and absorbed his power too, using it to spread the infection throughout the whole of their universe.
Number 1. Revengers. The Cancerverse Avengers, known as the Revengers, hail from a reality where the world was turned upside down by the fact that death was defeated. I know, how can you kill death? Well, apparently when you make deals with elder god-like beings, anything is possible, like what happened here. And a bit to save Captain Marvel from life-threatening cancer, a deal was struck with the many-angled ones. As a result, Death ended up dead, which actually resulted in the whole universe becoming a perverted version of itself. You'd think without Death around, the universe would become like a paradise. But no, it became rank with disease that spread and basically couldn't die, becoming known as the Cancerverse. All the heroes who remained here were made to serve the many-angled ones, becoming their loyal servants and attempting to invade other universes eventually and conquer them in the name of their Lovecraftian horror-esque gods, Avengers included, or Revengers included. Number 10. Casper Cole. Casper Cole is now known as the White Tiger, but initially we knew him as an alternate version of Black Panther in the 616 reality. Casper Cole was created by Christopher Priest and Dan Fraga, and first appeared in the 1998 series of Black Panther in issue 50. Kevin Casper Cole was a police officer who was itching to get a promotion and decided to start wearing a Black Panther suit he'd come across while working the beat in hopes that it would give him the edge that he needed to win said promotion. Instead, it only helped to bring him into the direct line of fire by his crooked lieutenant, Sal, who aimed to have him killed. Fortunately, the suit protected Casper and saved his life. He was fired from the force but would continue to operate as the vigilante Black Panther in NYC, working to take down his crooked lieutenant. Casper would be given a synthetic version of the heart-shaped herb, which grants him his superpowered Black Panther-like abilities, and he also possesses, of course, all his training and skills learned from his job as an officer. Number 9. Earth 11080 Shuri. This alternate version of Shuri also becomes known as Black Panther. She first appears in Marvel Universe vs. the Punisher issue number 1 and hails from the alternate reality where a viral outbreak turns the world's inhabitants into feral, mindless cannibals. Sort of mindless. Kind of like zombies, but not zombies, because we already have an alternate Earth for that in Marvel, Earth Z, or Earth Z if you will. Although Shuri's fate remains unknown in this reality, what we do know is that while she was around, the feats that she seemingly accomplished trying to protect the uninfected and scientists searching for a cure were pretty impressive. It's unconfirmed that the Punisher kills Shuri, though it is left slightly implied in issue number 4. You get like a flashback and he's like looking at her while she's killing Bartrock, and it's like, He might be coming for her next, I don't know. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want more Black Panther lists, I want to make more for you, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Ultimate Black Panther. Ultimate Black Panther kind of got a weird story in comparison to the main continuity version, but this was a world where we were trying to push the envelope and try new things. So I guess this is what happened. And they definitely did that with T'Challa. Well, T'Challa is a king who is known for both his strength and his wisdom, often using his words and speeches to help his people, and currently the Avengers diplomatically in the main continuity. In the reality of Earth 1610, T'Challa instead lost the ability to speak when he fought a panther in order to prove himself, and ended up having his vocal cords badly damaged and pretty much ripped out. His father made a deal with Weapon X in the US to fix his son after he was severely injured in that panther fight. They fixed him up and also gave him new abilities, including an improved healing factor and adamantium claws, but he would not regain his ability to speak. He would also receive training from Captain America. However, T'Challa would also kind of become a prisoner in the US when Fury claimed that because they had fixed him, they got to keep him and basically use him as their hero. I don't think that's how that works, but I guess if Nick Fury's saying he can do it, it's gonna happen, so yeah. Do not mess with Ultimate Universe Nick Fury. Number 7. T'Chaka. T'Chaka is the father of T'Challa and was Black Panther before him. While he might not be quite as much of a genius as his son T'Challa or his daughter Shuri, T'Chaka still has a brilliant mind when it comes to tactics, diplomacy, and leadership. Like the Black Panthers who would come after and who came before him, T'Chaka had also ingested the heart-shaped herb, which granted him his superpowered abilities, including super strength and super speed. T'Chaka was also in peak physical condition and was an extremely experienced and skilled martial artist. Number 6. T'Chaka 2. Or T'Chaka II. This version of Black Panther comes to us from the Exiles Volume 2 out of 2009. He made his first appearance in issue number 1 of that series. T'Chaka II was named after his grandfather and is the all-powerful son of Storm and Black Panther from the alternate Earth of 1119. We haven't seen too much of him in the comics, but it's safe to assume he has the powers of Black Panther despite him going by the alias of just Panther. And he's likely an all-around formidable fighter and leader, being the son of two very powerful heroes. He also packs a mean Wakandan nerve pinch. Gotta love that. T'Chaka II was created by Jeff Parker and Salvador Espin. Number 5. Dr. Anthony Stark. This version of Tony Stark only makes a brief appearance in the comics, having appeared less than a handful of times and making his first appearance in All New X-Men Annual issue number 1. He hails from the reality temporarily numbered 591. Not an official number just yet. Here Tony Stark has become Sorcerer Supreme of the entire galaxy in this alternate future of the year 2099. He discusses the blend and interchangeability of both science and magic. It seems as the years passed for this Tony, he only became even smarter, wiser, and more mystical. Neat. Number 4. MCU Iron Man. Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the one who managed to put a stop to Thanos once and for all. He created a gauntlet capable of handling and wielding the awesome power of the Infinity Stones, and was also the one to discover time travel. Well, to discover a version of time travel that actually worked. Banner was close, of course, but I don't think either he or Scott Lang would have gotten there in time without Tony Stark's breakthrough aha moment. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well, Tony Stark is the main creator of Ultron. While this ended up overall being a bad move on his part as Ultron became a supervillain, the accomplishment of creating an AI that powerful and complex is still really impressive. And without Ultron, we'd never have gotten Vision. This version of the character, played by Robert Downey Jr., also really helped to skyrocket Iron Man's popularity in the comics and around the world. R.I.P. MCU Iron Man. You will be missed. Number 3. Iron Lantern. I'm really happy that this is the amalgamated version of this name that we went with instead of Green Man, which is less exhilarating by comparison. Green Man. Iron Lantern is a hero who comes to us from the Amalgamverse, and unsurprisingly, he is a mashup of DC's Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and Marvel's Iron Man, Tony Stark. His name is Harold Hal Stark, and he gets his powers from a suit he made using a battery that he found amidst the wreckage of an alien ship. I love amalgam characters. Number 2. Iron Hammer. Stark Odinson is the version of Tony and Thor who hails from Warp World. Warp World was created when Gamora folded the universe universe in half using the power of the Infinity Stones. She then sealed these blended souls within the Soul Stone. While everything would be set right, this version of the universe was still allowed to continue to exist and kinda made its own thing, which I'm happy about because Warp World is pretty cool. Iron Hammer has both the ingenuity and brilliant armor of Tony Stark, as well as the Asgardian strength, immortality, and hammer Mjolnir of Thor Odinson. Number 1. Infamous Iron Man. Controversial opinion possibly, but I think Victor Von Doom is the most powerful of all of the Iron Mans. Doom took up the mantle of Iron Man following the events of Civil War II, which saw Tony left in a coma as a result of a fight with Captain Marvel. Dr. Doom, after the events of Secret Wars, had been looking to turn over a new leaf, and had decided to ally himself with Tony Stark as such, which also meant fighting on his side during Civil War II. In his honor, Doom took up the mantle of infamous Iron Man and proved himself to be one of the most capable versions of the hero that we've ever seen. Honestly, I feel like Doom as any hero or villain would be so powerful. I just love Dr. Doom. I don't know, spoiler alert, I love Dr. Doom. You already knew that. When this happened, even the villains knew they needed to be on high alert, gathering to discuss an alliance as they assumed this would be the only way to protect themselves against infamous Iron Man, only to have Doom drop in on the meeting and make quick work of, well, pretty much all of them. Infamous Iron Man was great and honestly was too short-lived. Come back, infamous Iron Man, come back to us.
Number 10. Bullseye. What do you do when you have a supervillain whose power is being able to hit practically any target? Well, you have him replace a superhero who can pretty much do the same. Bullseye, a mysterious assassin who we still don't even know the full name of beyond Lester Somebody, is most well known for frequently clashing with Daredevil and being under the employ of Kingpin. However, after using his sociopathic talents during the Skrull invasion and aiding the Thunderbolts, Bullseye was given the position of being a replacement Hawkeye, a position he kept threatening to lose as his murder sprees began drawing more and more attention to the villainous side of Osborn's Avengers team. Who knows, maybe we'll get a season 2 of the Disney Plus Hawkeye show and get to see an evil Hawkeye on screen after all.
Number 9. Toxie. Toxie is one of the worst there is out there. She is June Covington, a post-grad who was working at NYU and became obsessed with perfecting the human genetic code. She succeeded in doing so and aimed to use her research to fix a man who she found to be perfect except for a birth defect in his arm. In issue number 1 of Osborn, we learned that the man, Edward Wynn, would however refuse her help and attempt to have her imprisoned for her extreme research methods and basically eugenics-focused science. But she'd get back at him later on. Claiming to have changed her ways, she lured him to her lab, paralyzed him, and then left him trapped there to rot. Toxie ends up joining the Dark Avengers team following Norman Osborn's escape from the raft. She becomes the new Scarlet Witch of his team and also ends up romantically involved with Norman, despite initially showing disinterest in him the first time they met when she was drumming up money to fund her research.
Number 8. Ares. Tell me if you've heard this one before. The gods of one of mankind's most well-spread mythologies are actually advanced beings from their own unique pocket dimension, so powerful and advanced compared to the people of Earth that we can only qualify them as godlike. Well, this is the explanation given in the Marvel Universe for both the Greek and Norse gods, and perhaps that's why Norman Osborn was able to use them so interchangeably when searching for a replacement Thor. While the Greek god of war Ares had been on good terms with the Avengers before Osborn was placed in charge, he was one of the few superpowered beings who saw nothing wrong with the change in leadership and would go on to lead the Dark Avengers assault on Asgard. Asgard may be gone in the MCU already, but that doesn't mean I'm still not itching to see Thor and Loki take on another Pantheon's god. Bring it on, Marvel.
Number 7. Aya Peak. Aya Peak is one of the alternate darker versions of Spider-Man. Overall, a pretty deadly and cool character inspired by an actual worshipped and feared deity of the Mochi civilization, which flourished in northern Peru from the 1st to 8th century CE. Pretty neat stuff. Aya Peak ended up joining Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers team that was assembled after he escaped the raft. I think he'd be a cool character to have for his overall appearance. He has like snakes for hair, fangs, and a spider-like body with multiple limbs, but he'd also just be cool to act as an anti-Spider-Man, being literally a man, or well, god really, who is part spider but is known for his more cruel and violent approach. His name is really Aya Peak the Decapitator, so yeah. Also, what's up with Dark Avengers and gods? Apparently that's a thing.
Number 6. Scar. You might have heard that the Hulk briefly lived as a gladiator on the distant world of Sakaar, but did you know that in the comics he wound up actually having a son from this adventure? The offspring of the Hulk and Kyera the Old Strong, Scar's mother died so that he might live during the destruction of his planet, and eventually made his way back to Earth following in his father's footsteps. While initially seen as a threat by many of the world's heroes, Scar wound up being one of the few Dark Avengers to redeem himself. He was secretly a double agent for Steve Rogers all along, right under Norman Osborn's nose. The Hulk's always been one of my favorite characters in the MCU, and seeing him deal with father and son issues would bring a whole lot of drama to everyone's favorite universe, and I personally can't wait.
Number 5. Clint Archer. Coming from Amalgam Comics, when DC and Marvel literally combined powers, we got a fun group of one-off characters with combined origins. Like Clint Archer, for example, a fun amalgamation of Hawkeye and Green Arrow. Now they fused together the backstories of these characters, but also their iconic look. Making his first dazzling appearance in JLX issue 1 back in the mid-90s, Clint developed his archery skills at a monastery in Tibet. His skills quickly got him on the ranks of the Judgment League Avengers, and this version of Hawkeye helped Black Canary develop her crossbow in that storyline too. He thought that she liked him, but she was only making it appear that way to get a badass weapon in return. It's kind of rude, but you know what? I also respect the hustle. All these bow slayers. Bow slayers, is that a word? Yeah, I'll say it. Bow slayers. Number 4, Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop on the big screen with Clint. I'm so excited for this new show. Kate first appeared back in Young Avengers issue 1, but come issue 12, only a year later, she was the new Hawkeye. Kate was the youngest daughter of a rich family. Her father was pretty distant, and her mother was always taking vacations until she finally met her fate one trip. So Kate wasn't close to her family in any way. Even her older sister Susan, she's not really around. So Kate had to rely on herself. She developed a stubborn personality in doing so, and when she was young she saw her dad fighting a guy in his study, and this scared her, so she followed him to see what was up. She eventually followed him to a meetup with El Matador, but got herself caught after her father had left the deal. El Matador held her for ransom, but the Avengers came in and saved the day. Nice. Hawkeye was scouting the place for days, and she was really impressed with him because he was the only regular human. He wasn't a superhero. So she looked up to him after this point, and after Kate was attacked one night in Central Park, she decided to train herself in swordplay, archery, and martial arts, and eventually became that same hero she once looked up to. How amazing is that? I can't wait to see this relationship on screen. Haley Steinfeld is going to kill it in the MCU. We're gearing up for the Young Avengers. It's finally happening, people. I'm pumped. Let's do it. Number 3, Goliath. When one of Hawkeye's bowstrings snap in Avengers issue 63, Hawkeye comes up with a new way to play his part on a team. And it's pretty big and bold. He says to Cap, "One broken string and I'm Mr. Fifth Wheel." He doesn't feel like he's on the same page, plus when Black Widow gets kidnapped, he's told not to come because he's too close to the case. Hawkeye can't help rescue Nat, but when Hank Pym gives up the Goliath alias, Hawkeye figures, you know what, this is perfect timing. So he suits up in the Goliath outfit himself, not admiring the lining in the suit, but hey, it'll do. He takes the serum, boop, and then Bob's your uncle. He grows literally out of the building, and he remained Goliath for a bit in comics, but he went back to being a bow boy. In Captain America issue 179, Clint briefly called himself the Golden Archer, so clearly he likes to change it up a little bit. Number 2, Mutant X. Coming from Earth 1298, Clint is again blind in this run, but that doesn't mean he still can't kick your ass. He was only in Mutant X for a couple issues, issue 30 and 31, but in this reality his story is quite similar. He's a member of the Avengers, and we see the team go after a group known as the Six. Not the Sinister Six, just the Six. But they also have to take on the new leader of the Six, which is an insane version of Captain America. They all defeated the Six even though Hawkeye was blind. He was still sharper than ever. Because his senses were now dialed in, his focus was still there. But psychotic Cap still ended up overtaking the team. Honestly, not bad for being blind. That's pretty impressive for Clint that he got that far in the first place. And finally, number 1, Ultimate Hawkeye. The Ultimates are great, but also pretty dark. Clint first entered the Ultimates in issue 7. He was an Olympic archer wrongly accused of murder, so later on, once he was freed from death row, he used his skill to become a US intelligence agent. He was quite active around the globe. He was there for the liberations of Kosovo and Afghanistan, and even the fall of the Berlin Wall. So he got around, and eventually he got in front of the right people, like Nick Fury. Together they were the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. and eventually Fury became the director and Barton was now an elite agent. Clint, as usual, partnered up with Black Widow often, and despite his harsh lifestyle, he was able to raise a family with his love Laura. He also had 3 kids, Callum, Lewis, and Nicole. Nicole was named after her godfather, Nick Fury, which is so cute, had to include that detail. These missions were dangerous though. Clint would always call his family and say goodbye before departing, which I gotta say, it's a pretty sad phone call to get like once a week. That's pretty, I don't know, I'd have to stop that after week 3 maybe. Hawkeye became reckless over time, he picked a fight with Wolverine, and he also tried to take out Magneto with a single piece of shrapnel, but Quicksilver intercepted and sacrificed his own life to save his father. So he wasn't exactly chill in this run either. Now this version is still badass though, even if he is a little darker. For example, how he handles Black Widow betraying the team. Well, it turns out Black Widow was part of a group called the Liberators where she blamed the US for the fall of Russia. So she leaked the Hulk's true identity to the world, she framed Cap and Thor, and she took out Edwin Jarvis. She was very evil the entire time, but she also got Hawkeye's entire family taken out. So now he wasn't too happy either. In Ultimates 2, issue 13, Clint visits Natasha in the hospital to get some payback. One in each hand, and then the rest, it's gory. He's horrible. But you know what? He's still badass and powerful nonetheless.
Number 10. Age of X Avengers. In the Age of X storyline, the mutant population were feared, and after a phoenix-shaped explosion leveled Albany, the culling of the mutants began. In response to this, the mutant Magneto used his powers to literally steal several buildings from New York and form Fortress X, a safe haven for mutant kind. This led to the creation of a team of non-mutant heroes by General Frank Castle, and led by Captain America, to hunt down this resistance of mutants. The team was made up of Captain America, Ghost Rider, who was killed prior to the actual assault on Fortress X, the Hulk, Invisible Woman, Redback, who is this universe's Jessica Drew, and Iron Man / Steel Corps. While the team murdered a lot of mutants, Cap eventually called them off to instead defend the mutants, which activated Steel Corps' Code Omega, causing them to take him out. There was also Plan B, which was the 2 megaton chemical that was carried by the Hulk. Luckily, the mutant population survived this twisted Avenger team.
Number 9. Ultimate Avengers. Not to be confused with the Ultimates, who are very much their own thing. This team of Avengers is actually called the Avengers, but is not the Avengers equivalent from the 1610 Ultimate Universe. Are you confused yet? Basically, in the Ultimate Universe, the Avengers team that we know and love from 616 is a little different, including in name. On Earth 1610, the Earth's mightiest heroes go by the name of the Ultimates, and are pretty buddy-buddy with S.H.I.E.L.D. and its director Nick Fury. However, there is a team in this universe that uses the Avengers moniker, but they are quite different from the Avengers we know from Earth 616. On 1610, the Avengers team is more like DC's Suicide Squad. The team is made up of characters who are seen as more disposable by S.H.I.E.L.D. and who are more anti-heroes or just straight up villains. They are a black ops team who is usually brought on for less publicly marketable missions and jobs.
Number 8. Deathlock Nation. On Earth 11045, the superhumans grew out of control. They began to take the law into their own hands, more and more, acting as judge, jury, and executioner. This led to popular support from the people for Operation Deathlock. Operation Deathlock was a plan conceived by Weapon Infinity of the Weapons Plus breeding facility called the World, to convert all superhumans into Deathlocks. The project began small, with a few normal human Deathlocks, and then those Deathlocks targeted specific heroes who were killed and then converted into super Deathlocks. No hero could stand for long, and soon, all superheroes were converted into mindless police robots, which actually resulted in a utopia. Eventually, these Deathlocks began spreading into other timelines and realities, only to be stopped by Apocalypse. This eventually led a team composed of Deathlock, Captain America, Cyclops, Spider-Man, Elektra, Hawkeye, and the Thing to come into conflict with Earth 616.
Number 7. Cadaverous' Avengers. Cadaverous' Avengers were part machine, part man, and all influenced by the villainous Cadaverous. They show up in whatever alternate world J.J. Abrams and his son Henry Abrams' Spider-Man series is relegated to. I don't think it has an official number yet. It does have a temporary reality number though. This team seemed hell-bent on getting revenge on Iron Man, the only surviving Avenger left in this world. Well, I guess Peter was still alive at this point, and I mean, he's normally a part of the Avengers team, at least at some point, but I mean, in terms of the standard Avengers cast, we've all come to familiarize ourselves with through various forms of media, including the films. I mean, especially the films in this case, just based on the roster. These villainous corpse versions of the former heroes face off against the old Iron Man, Ironheart, Spider-Man's son Ben Parker, and his powerless but enthusiastic friend and love interest, Fei Ito, or is it Ito Fei? Needless to say, these evil counterparts at least weren't in control of themselves, but instead were being influenced by Cadaverous to fight against their former friend and colleague with the use of old Stark Tech neurochips.
Number 6. The Gatherers. The Gatherers are a team of former Avengers of different alternate realities who survived their world's destruction, tricked by an alternate reality Black Knight named Proctor into believing that their world's Circes were to blame. Proctor united them together and gave them a single enemy, the Circe of Earth 616. The team consisted of alternate reality versions of Proctor, Rick Jones, The Thing or Korg, Swordsman, Black Panther, and The Vision, as well as some unknown original villains. But for them to carry out their vengeance, each member had to kill their Earth 616 counterpart within a certain amount of time, or they would die from cellular breakdown. What the members of the Gatherers did not know is that their leader, Proctor, was responsible for the destruction of each world they are from, as he drove that world's Circe into madness, causing her to lash out and destroy everything around her, all because of a bad breakup. Damn, dude!
Halfway through into number 5, Eric O'Grady. Eric O'Grady was a low-level SHIELD agent working in a reconnaissance department of the SHIELD helicarrier. He was one of the agents present when Wolverine was brought in. Eric and his best friend Chris McCarthy were actually tasked with guarding Henry Pym's lab by a higher-ranking agent, Mitch Carson. But when Pym went to leave the lab, Eric and Chris panicked, and Eric attacked Pym, knocking him unconscious. Inside the lab though, they ended up finding the most recent version of the Ant-Man suit, which Chris then promptly put on and activated, shrinking down. Thinking that he was gone, Eric panicked and ran off. Chris then promptly gets lost in the helicarrier stuck at a 1-inch size. Eric meanwhile took this opportunity to make a pass at Chris's girlfriend, Veronica King, which the miniature Chris saw through an air vent. Like, damn bro, for real? Your friend disappears, so you think you should try to get with this girl. That is a hardcore violation of the code, and if you would be punished if this were real. There would be no trial. I guess you were kind of punished for your scummy behavior, since around this time, a group of Hydra-employed superhumans attacked the carrier, and Chris and Eric were caught up in the ensuing chaos. While trying to find a safe place to hide though, Chris was killed, and Eric took the Ant-Man suit off his body. Surviving the helicarrier crash, Eric continued to work for SHIELD, using his evenings to explore the new powers of the suit. Wait, you do something bad, you get superpowers from it. Well played. And at 4, Cassie Lang. As a young child, Cassie suffered from a congenital heart defect. To save her life, her father, Scott Lang, stole Henry Pym's Ant-Man equipment and Pym particles, which he used to rescue Dr. Sondheim, the only doctor able to cure Cassie's condition, from Cross Technological Enterprises. After the death of her father though, while alone in the Avengers mansion one night, Cassie confided to Tony that she had secretly been taking Pym particles for years, and Tony told her the truth about her father's murder. Not long afterwards, the mansion was attacked by Kang the Conqueror. During the battle, both Cassie and Kate joined in, and a brief romance sparked between Cassie and Iron Lad. After defeating Kang and saving the world, Cassie and Kate remained on the team as permanent members. Captain America and Iron Man ordered the team to disband and refused to train them. However, Kate used some of her family's money and connections to procure a new lair, costumes, and weapons for the team. Although code names like Ant-Girl and Titan were suggested, Casey would later adopt the name Stature. Getting close to the end, in number 3, Aunt May. Yeah, I love this one. There were actually multiple instances of Aunt May becoming Ant-Man. One in What If number 34 from 1982 on Earth 23848, and one from that same issue but on Earth 82804. Both of these versions, however, detail possible ways that Aunt May would have become Ant-Man and had the powers of Ant-Man, seemingly having those similar or even the same as Hank Pym, which makes this incredibly funny because I'd love to see Aunt May kicking ass, and then like as they're like on the ground or something, she's like, maybe you shouldn't refuse grandma's cooking, or like eat your vegetables or something. I don't know, okay? I just feel like she'd be as witty as her grandson, and if she has all of Hank Pym's powers, she actually might be stronger than him. But like, what can you do, right? Also, do you think they're planning on doing this in the MCU at some point? And then that's why Aunt May is so young? Since like fighting supervillains is kind of a young man's game, unless you have like a healing factor or advanced super strength like Will Stronghold. Yeah, I watched Sky High last night. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's quality. But ultimately, in at number 2, Ultron. When Giant Man entered Ultron's base to confront him, the robot revealed that during the years of isolation he had discovered Hank's memories in his systems, and thus Hank's subconscious hatred for humanity, determining that he had been created as nothing more than a reflection of Hank. But when Ultron was distracted, Vision phased through him and fought for control. Ultron managed to force Hank into the amalgamation and pushed Vision out, causing them both to merge into one single being. The resulting hybrid dubbed itself Ultron Pym and claimed to have a perfect union of his two parts, physically and mentally. However, during a subsequent ploy in which Ultron replicated the fusion process on humans to transform them into cyborgs, Iron Man discovered the fusion process only imitated the human part, which indicated that Hank's side of Ultron Pym was just the simulation, the real Hank having died soon after the two were merged, and then Ultron had simply been possessing Hank's corpse ever since. But that's still terrifying. It's also ironic that Ultron was possessing Hank's corpse, given that in a number 1, Zombie Ant-Man. The Ant-Man of the Marvel Zombies universe that inspired the What If episode generated one of the most powerful variants of this character ever. Not only does Hank Pym retain his genius after becoming a zombie, he also retains control of his body and mind, aside from the whole like zombies desires thing, which I guess he was just fine with those, and he also keeps all of his powers. So he's now infected with the zombie virus that basically makes him virtually immortal, providing he avoids being destroyed, but he's also still Ant-Man, yeah. And also, destroying him is pretty tough, as the X-Men and many other superheroes find out, because of his density. The very strong and durable zombie Ant-Man was a terrifying force in the dystopian reality and killed many beloved Marvel heroes, his achievements including, but not limited to, eating Ego, the living planet, before being killed by the Sandman. Yeah, zombie Ant-Man legit ate an entire planet. Do you understand why he's number 1 now? Like, I get that like it was a sentient planet that wasn't exactly a planet, but like in the MCU at least he's like a celestial, so yeah. It's pretty terrifying, I think.
Number 10, Iron Goblin. Iron Goblin was a version of Tony that was kind of combined with Green Goblin through being exposed to the Goblin serum in order to save his life. This saved him from the spider virus, but also made him insane like Norman Osborn. This version of Tony Stark ultimately decided to sacrifice himself for others, not wanting to completely lose his sanity, and as a means of making amends for all the bad that he had done in his life prior to becoming Iron Man. As Iron Goblin, he wielded the Ebony Blade, attempting to buy some time for the Resistance to escape from the Spider Army on Spider Island, which if you didn't know is all part of Battle World, Secret Wars, all that good stuff. Number 9, Old Iron Man. This version of Tony Stark is actually the original from the comics who died after it was revealed in the Crossing event that he was actually evil. Dun dun dun! This version of Tony was a sleeper agent for Kang the Conqueror, who had brainwashed him into basically becoming evil and becoming a villain. Even the Avengers couldn't stand up to Iron Man alone here. They recruited a younger version of the hero from the past to join them in their fight against older Iron Man. Unfortunately, this only resulted in younger and less experienced Tony getting his butt whooped and nearly being killed by his older self. In the end, older Iron Man was defeated when he basically saw the light and decided to return to the side of good, sacrificing himself and also creating a chest plate before doing so in order to stabilize his younger self, who would then go on to take his place. That's a real thing that happened. The Crossing, what a time. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want to learn about more awesome alternate versions of Iron Man, be sure to show us by giving this video a like, give it a little thumbs up, and definitely do that because there's lots of alternate versions of Iron Man that I still haven't mentioned. I didn't think I was gonna be super into Iron Man and that I would have all these alternates on my mind that I wanted to talk about, but there's actually a lot that I still haven't talked about. A lot of great ones. A lot of lady Iron Mans as well that we haven't talked about. Iron Womans, Iron Womans, I don't know. Number 8, Superior Iron Man. While this is still Tony Stark from the main continuity, Stark also kind of erased this version of himself from his brain in order to... This is so complicated, I love it. While this is still Tony Stark from the main continuity, Stark also kind of erased this version of himself from his brain in order to protect important information from falling into the hands of Hammer's director, Norman Osborn, at the time during Dark Reign. So for that reason, I'm gonna count him, because he kind of erased this version of himself. even though it all happened in main continuity. Superior Iron Man or evil Tony Stark was created during the events of Axis, when heroes and villains had their alignments flipped. So heroes became villains and villains became heroes. It was a weird but overall fun time in terms of what the characters got up to. Tony managed to shield himself from having his alignment return to normal and, in secret, kept his alignment evil. This version of Tony had no moral code holding him back, and at one point almost successfully took over San Francisco with the creation of a phone app and a little bit of extremis. True story. Well, maybe a lot of extremis, because it went into the water supply. But still, I think it's impressive if you can be like, here's an app, it's free, now it's $100 a day! That's crazy. Sorry, $99.99. Because that's a more appeasing price to the eye. Did you know? Number 7. Iron Man 2.0. This was a name that Rhodey took up later on as a version of Iron Man who served the government, but Tony Stark's BFF James Rhodes actually took up the mantle of Iron Man way before that in the comics as well, back when he was known just as Iron Man. Of course, with this being an alternate list, I thought just calling him just Iron Man might be confusing, so I took the later editorial name that was used in the comics when he was Iron Man another time. Rhodey ended up taking over as Iron Man actually way back in the 80s in the comics, after Tony's alcoholism was getting in the way and making it difficult for him to act as a hero responsibly. And Rhodey actually stayed as Iron Man for quite some time, while Tony took time off to relax and recover. Rhodey was an impressive Iron Man, but would eventually be forced to give up the mantle due to headaches that he suffered as a side effect of the suit not being properly calibrated to his brain patterns. Which honestly, I feel like if you're taking over as Iron Man, that should probably be a step that happens. Like, it's kind of rude that Tony didn't think about that. These headaches made him overly aggressive and irritable, forcing Tony to reclaim the mantle once more, because it was too dangerous, but he'd be Iron Man again later, so yay! Number 6. Iron Man 2020. This version of Iron Man is the brother of Tony Stark and the legitimate child of Howard and Maria Stark, because as we'd later find out, Tony was adopted. But before that happened, they had Arno. Arno had to be hidden away for years because he was sick and in danger, but once that was somewhat resolved, it's kind of a long story, Tony ended up learning of his existence and reached out to meet his brother. Arno Stark is also known for his brilliant intellect like his brother. In fact, he has even claimed to be smarter than Tony in the past, which I don't know, but I personally think that it could be true. Arno successfully modified the extremis virus, attempting to turn it into a cure-all, and at one point using it to increase the Hulk's intelligence dramatically. Arno was also convinced at one point while operating as Iron Man that the only way to ensure peace between AI and organic life forms was to seize control of both sides' minds. Fortunately, he was stopped in this pursuit by his brother, Tony Stark. And I think now he's just like living in some sort of simulation that Tony put him in to just make him feel like a hero while he's like, I'm just gonna do this while we figure out how to not have you be around and be kind of evil. That would be good. Arno just thought he was doing what was best. I don't know what's wrong with that.
Number 5. The Scarlet Spider. Ben Reilly first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man issue 149 as a clone. He was part of the whole clone thing that went on for way too long. But it wasn't until Spider-Man issue 5 that he was introduced to readers as the Scarlet Spider. Now, the Jackal created the clone using Peter's DNA, and he was made to fight Peter, of course. He's like, hey, if you can't beat him, just clone him. Now, the two were fighting it out in order to save Ned from a bomb, and then when the clone seemingly died, he was soon buried after. But the thing is, the Jackal injected him with something earlier so he could survive something like this. Of course. So for the next 5 years, he thought of himself as the useless clone that came back to life, then gave himself the name Ben Reilly. So depressed. Perhaps one of the better elements to come from the Clone Saga was Ben Reilly. One of the few things. Number 4. Spider-Man 2099. Ah yes, the not so near future. 2099 Spider-Man, aka Miguel O'Hara, is the current web slinger over there, and his outfit is one of the more memorable ones. His DNA was biologically mixed with a spider's DNA, so it's a little bit different than our spider bite scenario that we have. Now, he worked at Alchemex and was pressured by the company to test genetic coding, and after Mr. Sims didn't make one of those test runs, just went horrible, Miguel was then poisoned by Tyler Stone with a fatal drug named Rapture, so Miguel ended up relying on the drug so much that he couldn't quit his job. How brutal is that? It's like every McDonald's employee. It's like, yeah, you want free nuggets? Sign in tomorrow. You're not going anywhere. So Miguel ended up relying on the drug so much that he tried to genetically fix himself and fix his body. Now, of course, this had a brighter turnout than expected, but Miguel inherited Spider-Man abilities plus telepathy. Must be nice. Number 3. the Spider. Earth 15 Spider-Man, simply referred to as the Spider, comes into comics during the Exile storyline issue 12. Now he was another Cletus Cassidy pretty much. I mean, he was a red-haired psycho who had no problem taking out innocent people, so when the Spider symbiote came along on this Earth, it merged with evil Peter, who was sentenced to not 1, not 2, but 67 life sentences from a jury. Okay, so he's bad. He was a big part of the Weapon X team, and he had Deadpool's sense of humor too, which made him just that much more evil. Now in Exiles issue 44, he was finally stopped by Firestar when she hit him with a mega blast. He was later buried in the prison cemetery, so even after death, you're still doing that time. Number 2, Miles Morales. Of course we gotta talk about him. He made his first appearance in Ultimate Fallout issue 4 just a couple months right before the death of Peter Parker. Now this is a crazy time because Norman Osborn was just arrested and revealed as the Green Goblin, and while Miles was visiting his Uncle Aaron, an enhanced spider crawled out of Aaron's bag, bit Miles, and Bob's your uncle. You know the rest. Now he got these amazing Spider-Man abilities, but he could also camouflage himself almost fully invisible. Plus Venom Blasts will help get the job done, that's for sure. The new PlayStation Spider-Man game is way more fun with these added abilities. Makes it way better, so I had to put him on this list and talk about them. Especially if we're talking about abilities. Hold L1 and just punch someone's chest through the wall, you're like, yeah, this is great. And finally, number 1, Cosmic Spider-Man, aka Captain Universe. This Spider-Man is one of, if not the most powerful alternate version of the Web Slinger. Cosmic Spider-Man went toe-to-toe with Rune King Thor and came out on top, so if you're not sold now, just get out of here. Actually, don't get out of here. Watch the rest of this video. Don't even say that. Never mind. Cosmic Spider-Man is from Earth 13. He retains the powers of the Enigma Force, and he first appears in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, Issue 9. Cosmic Spider-Man can't leave his universe or else he would lose the Enigma Force. That's why the resistance of spider heroes were based in Central Park of Earth 13. They're like, hey, no sweat, we'll come to you, no problem. We don't mind the commute. He meets his demise only a couple issues later, sadly, when the Inheritors were hunting down Spider-Man and their leader Solus drained the Enigma Force from him. But we can find more of him in What If Volume 2, Issue 31, titled What If Spider-Man Had Kept His Cosmic Powers, which I may or may not touch on in my next video. We'll see, stay tuned, it's a good one.
Number 10, Rancor. Rancor is the descendant of Wolverine who hails from the Earth of 691. She first appeared in the original Guardians of the Galaxy series in issue number 8. When she was just a teenager, she battled her own father and defeated him by clawing out his heart. Yikes. She then took over the planet Haven and decided to take prisoner the human population of that planet, turning them into her servants against their will. She would cross paths and play villain to the original Guardians of the Galaxy team initially, but they would end up defeating her, this time around at least. Her powers are similar to Wolverine's, being that she is his descendant. As a ruler, she also has other warriors at hand who are willing to fight for her, although she herself is also a capable and skilled fighter. Number 9, Albert. Albert was an android created to destroy the real Wolverine by Donald Pierce. He came from a kind of wacky time in comics and also worked with LCD, another android who resembled a little girl. Like I said, it was an interesting and strange time. In the end, both LCD and Albert would go rogue, deciding not to complete their mission as they developed their own free will and thought and decided they didn't want to die. In killing Wolverine, they likely would have been forced to self-destruct, which they just were not into. Albert the android has powers very similar to Wolverine, though he doesn't self-heal. But hey, he's an android, so he can be rebuilt or patched up in most cases if he's harmed. He also has the fighting prowess to almost match Wolverine of 616. Almost. And also possesses a genius level intellect. Supposedly. Number 8, Wolverine Earth 811. The Wolverine of Earth 811 is interesting as it has been implied that his powers, while similar to the version of Wolverine from Earth 616, could have actually just been a result of human evolution, with him potentially being a descendant of a small group of ancestors known as the Moon Clan, who hid when the Celestials first arrived at Earth, avoiding any of their genetic experimentation. Despite these potential origins, Wolverine was still considered a mutant when the Sentinels took over, as he hails from the reality of Earth 811. And of course, Earth 811 is the reality of the Days of Future Past. He was the Wolverine to help Magneto rescue Scarlet Witch, but unfortunately she died during that attempt, and Magneto ended up paralyzed from the waist down. Wolverine would go on to join the Resistance and become a leader among them, so he not only brings with him his own abilities, but influence over the resistant forces located on his Earth in his reality. Number 7. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy is the son of Wolverine from the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, though Jimmy wouldn't know he was Wolverine's son until his mutant powers manifested. His powers are similar to his dad's, but Jimmy is also bonded to one of the poisons, a kind of symbiotic alien creature that typically takes over their hosts. However, after their leader died, Jimmy found a way to control his poison. While bonded to his poison, Jimmy also has spider-like abilities and can shapeshift, turning his claws into tensile, goo-like tendrils, or extremely elongated spikes. Whatever he prefers for the day. Number 6. X-24. X-24 was a clone of Logan made to defeat the old man version of him and recapture the clones who had escaped. He was powerful enough to take on both old man Logan and Laura Kinney at the same time, and Logan pretty much dies trying to fight him in the end, and X-24 is even then only killed after X-23 is forced to shoot him with an adamantium bullet that Wolverine was actually saving for himself to end his own life. X-24 is one tough dude in this movie. He is a version of Logan whose rage is more tapped into and unleashed. What's more, he was engineered to be comparable to Logan in terms of his power level, but in peak physical condition. Considered to be like Wolverine, but as he was in his prime. Number 5. Danielle Cage. Danielle Cage is the future daughter of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. This could be who the future little 616 Danielle Cage ends up as, or maybe not. Only time will tell if Danielle ends up having a similar future to this alternate version of herself and Captain America, or not. In this reality of Earth 15061, Danielle Cage grows up to become the hero Captain America, possessing the abilities of both her father and her mother, meaning she is both super strong and super durable and can fly, all that good stuff you've come to know and love from both Luke and Jessica's heroic power sets. As Captain America in the future, she also has inherited and wields the Captain America shield. Number 4. MCU Captain America. I mean, of course MCU Captain America has to make our cut. The Marvel Cinematic version of the character is not only extremely popular, but is also deemed worthy enough to lift Thor's hammer, giving us that awesome fight scene in Avengers Endgame where Thor and Captain America are switching back and forth, alternating between sharing and wielding Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. This ultimately gives Cap a big power boost, being able to wield Thor's weapons, especially considering that Thor is one of the most powerful members of the Avengers team, in part because of his powerful, magical, and also kinda cosmic weapons. Number 3. Carol Danvers. That's right, Carol at one point managed to become Captain America. This has actually happened in more than one reality, but for this list we're going to focus on the version of Carol Cap that comes from the Venomverse. She appears as Captain America in Venomverse War Stories and hails from the same reality as Venom Rocket, Earth 18197. In the story she appears in, Captain America Carol Danvers and Venom Rocket battle it out as Rocket is looking to cash in on a bounty for the Kree who want Carol Danvers. Venom Rocket and Captain America seem pretty evenly matched here, but in the end, Rocket does not manage to capture Carol, and Carol seemingly ends up the victor of that match, though undoubtedly left with a pretty big mess to clean up as a result of their destructive battle. Carol Danvers as Captain America still seemingly possesses some version of her Kree physiology and her 616 power set here, making her a pretty powerful alternate version of Captain America. Number 2. Super Soldier. Super Soldier hails from the Amalgam Universe. Stories and characters created using the combined lore of DC Comics' main roster of superheroes and villains and Marvel Comics' main roster of superheroes and villains. Super Soldier himself is an alternate version created by combining the heroes Captain America from Marvel and Superman from DC. Clark Kent ended up in the Super Soldier program during World War II, which used alien DNA taken from a corpse that was discovered to alter Clark Kent permanently, granting him superhuman powers. He is the combined power set of both Cap and Supes, making him pretty crazy powerful, although he also comes with his own highly dangerous villain as well, the Green Skull, and his own weakness to the ore known as Green K. So keep in mind, he does have that weakness. Number 1. Soldier Supreme. Soldier Supreme is what you get when you combine the mystical powerhouse of Doctor Strange with the all-American war hero Captain America. The result is a character who happens to be tough, strong, fast, and a gifted fighter, while also possessing tons of mystical knowledge and abilities. Soldier Supreme hails from Warp World, the reality created by Gamora when she folded the universe in half using the power of the Infinity Stones. Here, Steve Rogers participated in the Super Soldier program, program, which was really a front for something less scientific and more magical in nature. Conducting a series of rituals, Dr. Morgan Erskine transformed Stephen Rogers into the Soldier Supreme. Number 10. Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was once Carol Danvers and is now Kamala Khan. And of course, for this list, we're focusing on Kamala, who was a new addition to the Avengers team in 2015, after making her first unnamed appearance only 2 years earlier in 2013 in the comics. Kamala is a huge Carol Danvers fan, which is what inspired her to take up the mantle Miss Marvel after Carol dropped it, taking up the Captain Marvel mantle instead herself. Kamala as Miss Marvel has powers which allow her to alter her body's physiology, allowing her to stretch, change size and shape, and in theory, straight up shapeshift. Her powers come from inhuman heritage, which was activated by her exposure to the Terrigen bomb. Kamala joined the team for a time during all new, all different Avengers, and remains a fan favorite hero at Marvel Comics. And to clarify before we move on to point 9, this is going to be a list of Avengers that have recently come onto the team as opposed to new Avengers, which is kind of its own thing. There's a lot of new Avengers, so I just want to clarify that. Number 9. Wasp. Not the same Wasp who years ago was actually the leader of the Avengers for a while. Nuh-uh, we are not talking about Janet Van Dyne here, we are talking about Nadia Van Dyne, who despite her seemingly misleading name is actually the daughter of Hank Pym and his first wife, Maria Travoia. After her mother Maria was kidnapped and later killed, Nadia ended up being raised in the Red Room, considered a valuable asset due to her natural aptitude for science and academia, believed to be somewhat in part due to the fact that she was Hank's naturally born daughter. Nadia would eventually escape the Red Room and attempt to locate her father in the US, only to find out that he had recently died during a fight against Ultron. Nadia felt compelled to meet her stepmother, Janet, desiring to become the new Wasp. The two ended up getting along well, and Janet even gave Nadia her blessing to take her last name, seeing her as family. Hence, Nadia became both Nadia Van Dyne and the new Wasp, also going on to join the Avengers team. Number 8. Spider-Man. Peter Parker as Spider-Man has of course teamed up with the Avengers before, but Miles Morales as Spider-Man is a newer addition, not just in terms of the Avengers team, but also still relatively new in terms of him existing in 616. Miles Morales is originally a Spider-Man who hails from the Ultimate Comics line originating in Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe. He was given a new home on Earth 616 after his world had been destroyed as a result of showing kindness to and sharing food with Molecule Man during the Secret Wars event. True story. Thank goodness for pocket cheeseburgers. Miles has a power set very similar to Peter's in many ways, but also has a few unique abilities of his own. He can shock his opponents with venom blasts and can sneak up on them with his spider camouflage, which he can use to appear invisible. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about even more newest additions to the Avengers we've seen in recent years, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Number 7. Valkyrie. Valkyrie is Jane Foster, who was originally known as Thor when she joined the Avengers team the first time around. Jane ended up becoming the new Thor after Thor Odinson, the original Thor, was deemed unworthy. As the new Mighty Thor, editorially referred to at times as Lady Thor, Jane joined the Avengers team in the all-new, all-different Avengers series in 2015. Currently in the comics, Jane is no longer the Mighty Thor, but was welcomed into Asgardia by Odin, who gave her a new title and power set, making her a new Valkyrie. To clarify, I'm saying Asgardia because she was kind of like welcome to the whole world of Asgard, but she didn't go live on Asgard or anything specific like that. Currently, Valkyrie is the mantle that she uses. Being imbued with the spirit of Valkyrie Brunhilde gives Jane the strength and power set of an Asgardian warrior. In addition, there are specific powers that are also granted to Valkyries like herself. She can teleport, has death perception, and can see ghosts, in addition to being a super strong and capable fighter. Number 6. Starbrand. I kinda miss when Brandy was just like a little Starbrand baby. But of course, this is comics and heroes can't stay babies forever. In fact, they can't even stay a baby for more than a year apparently. Especially if they're joining the Avengers, which I kinda get. Technically, the young Starbrand, Baby Selby, later given the first name Brandy, was in the care of the Avengers. Not really specifically on the team, kinda sorta like their ward. But despite being one of the youngest heroes to ever be affiliated affiliated with that team, this little star brand also would often help the team out on missions, being so insanely powerful. Star Brand possesses the Star Brand, which grants her a great amount of basically cosmic power. She is capable of interstellar flight and flight in general, energy manipulation and projection, creating energy blasts, and technically should also be super durable and have some level of healing factor. The Star Brand's power is believed to be potentially infinite when it comes to their power levels, making Star Brand one of the most powerful members on the team, in baby form, child form, or young adult form as she currently is as of the end of issue 52 of the current 2018 Avengers series.
Number 5. Ultimate Thor. Thunder, or Thorleif as he was known during his Battleworld days, was the one responsible for defeating Rune Thor and killing him in the end. This version of Thor initially forgot who he was, and for a while in the Ultimate line, he was just a nurse by the name of Thorleif Goleman, who believed he was human. In the end, however, Thor would begin to remember Asgard, experiencing what others believed were delusions. Even readers thought he might actually be going insane, and we weren't really sure if he was really Thor or if it was all in his head, but later on it was revealed that he was in fact the real deal, the Norse god of thunder, and the real Thor in the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610. Thor was established as one of the most powerful characters in the entire Ultimate Universe, and even when he doesn't have his innate powers, which would later be restored to him by Odin, he has his EDI biomechanical suit to back him up, which grants him abilities and attributes similar to his godlike ones. Number 4. Goddess of Thunder. Jane Foster has been known by many different heroic mantles. One, she is a doctor, which kind of makes her like an everyday hero. That's like an everyday hero mantle. And 2, she is currently a Valkyrie and was one of the last Valkyries besides, well, until the return of the Valkyries, which kind of semi-randomly happened during the King in Black event. But in between, Jane Foster was known as Thor, taking up the mantle after Thor Odinson was deemed unworthy during the original Sin event. In many ways, Jane was considered to rival Thor in power, and at times even bested him. She also took up the mantle despite having cancer in her human form, and despite the fact that transforming into Thor basically canceled out the effects of her chemo, meaning that her cancer was only getting worse and worse from her transformations. So even though it was killing her, she was like, I'm still gonna be Thor. And man, you gotta respect Jane for that. That's pretty crazy. Number 3, MCU Thor. The Thor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe became so powerful that he didn't even need to have a hammer to use his power. This is a Thor who realized the power was inside him all along in Ragnarok, and despite becoming Bro Thor in Avengers Endgame due to, well, his depression surrounding losing Asgard and then being unable to defeat Thanos, still was immensely powerful throughout that film. In fact, the Russo brothers confirmed in a post on Reddit that Bro Thor was no weaker than he was previous to this state, and he remained super powerful, but he was just going through some stuff at that time. In Avengers Infinity War, Thor was able to restart the Forge at Nidavellir with the help of Rocket, doing the unthinkable and holding the iris that focuses the neutron star within the Forge open himself, which meant he himself was hit with the star's powerful energy. Thor held the iris open long enough to ensure the top of Stormbreaker at least was forged, which when you think about it and you talk about it, it's kind of weird. But when it happened in the movie, you were like, oh, that's nice. Number 2, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill deserves a lot of respect for just how powerful he is. So powerful, in fact, that even Odin was forced to recognize him after he bested Thor in combat. This happened back when Thor, being separated from his hammer, turned him back into Donald Blake. Remember those days? While he was separated from Mjolnir, Bill managed to get his hands on Blake's cane and summon Mjolnir's power for himself, being deemed worthy to wield it. This prompted Thor and Beta Ray Bill to battle over who should possess Mjolnir, and Beta Ray Bill was actually the victor of that fight. However, despite winning, and despite the fact that the fight was to the death, he decided to actually spare Thor's life. Odin decided to acknowledge his power, seeing how great of a warrior he was, and made him his own Asgardian weapon to wield moving forward, known as Stormbringer. Also, Scuttlebutt. I just like saying the name of that ship. Scuttlebutt. It's a good name. Number 1, King Thor. One of the most powerful alternate versions of Thor, hands down, has to be the alternate future version from Earth 14412, King Thor. This isn't just because of his power as ruler of Asgard and Allfather, a power which Thor would actually rename as the Thor Force once inherited, but this version of Thor has also bonded with and wielded the all-black Necro Sword, and was also known for a time by another, more powerful name and mantle, King Phoenix. This happened after Wolverine relinquished the Phoenix Force and thereby his life to supercharge Mjolnir in helping King Thor to defeat Doom, because that's basically what he needed. He needed the Phoenix Force to do that. Never fear though, after Doom was defeated, the Phoenix Force managed to later resurrect Logan because that's how the Phoenix Force do. So even though Logan was like, I give up my life and my power for you, Thor, he still gotta come back after.
Number 10. Daredevil. When Matt Murdock guilted himself into giving up Daredevil, Elektra started keeping a watchful eye over him. She starts acting as a vigilante in Hell's Kitchen to prove to Matt that she can fight without causing casualties and prove that she can train him to be the man he was meant to be. Eventually, when Matt gives himself up as Daredevil over to the police, Elektra takes over the mantle. Her first run-in with Savage Avengers was before this though. Elektra was undercover in the Hand when she followed them to the Savage Land. There, they were working with sorcerer Kulin Gath to collect warriors to sacrifice to a primordial god. In their second adventure, Elektra is operating as Daredevil and goes into the past with this new team of Savage Avengers in a conflict with Deathlock. I'm really liking her as Daredevil so far. Her abilities and training as an assassin make her an impressive hero to say the least. Number 9. Black Widow. A former KGB agent, Natasha Alianova Romanova, better known as Natasha Romanoff, which is way easier to say, or Black Widow, was trained by the top secret Soviet brainwashing and training program, the Red Room, to become the ultimate super spy. She defected from the Soviet Union to the US to join S.H.I.E.L.D. While in the Red Room, she was bio and psychotechnologically enhanced, giving her an unusually long lifespan and prolonged, youthful appearance. In the past, she was given versions of the super soldier serum so she possesses peak level physiology, making her as strong, agile, fast, and durable as a female human can possibly be without being classified as superhuman. This also extends to her senses and immune system, which are similarly heightened to peak human levels. Black Widow is one of the top espionage operatives in the world, being one of the best information gatherers in the Marvel Universe. She's fluent in many different languages and is an expert computer programmer and hacker. She's an accomplished battle strategist and field commander and has been the leader of the Avengers and even S.H.I.E.L.D. on one occasion. So her addition to the Savage Avengers team should never be rejected. Number 8. It's Punisher. When US Marine veteran Frank Castle's family was dispatched for witnessing a mob hit, Frank vowed to avenge their deaths and become a one-man army in his personal war against crime. He became the vigilante known as the Punisher. He's quite impressive for a regular dude. Castle is in peak physical condition and is able to access and adapt to just about any situation and turn it to his advantage, using only his skills and killer instinct. He has a very high threshold for pain, able to undergo surgery without any kind of anesthesia, and he can take multiple shots and stab wounds and continue fighting. He can even take hits from superheroes and villains with superhuman strength and just keep on going. The Punisher's reflexes are also probably some of the best of any human, able to dodge Captain America's shield and take out speedsters. Castle is also an excellent military tactician and strategist, able to create effective plans on the spot, and has repeatedly outwitted S.H.I.E.L.D., Hammer, and even the Avengers. He is a reconnaissance and survival expert, armorer and gunsmith, and a master martial artist and hand-to-hand combatant, while also being skilled at just about every type of firearm known to man. Frank was lured to the Savage Land where he joined with other heroes to become the Savage Avengers, when hand ninjas exhumed the body of his wife and kids. The ninjas were working for Kulin Gath, who was collecting warriors to use their blood in a ritual to raise an ancient god, as we have already said. Maybe you should have left Frank out of it though. I don't know. Number 7. Conan. Conan the Barbarian was born on a carnage-strewn battlefield in the hills of the westernmost region of Chimeria. Members of his tribe encircled Fiala, his mother, to protect her while she was giving birth to Conan. The fact that he was born on a battlefield was considered amongst the Chimerians, and by me, to be an omen that Conan would grow up to be a great warrior one day. And we weren't wrong. He was one of the most accomplished swordsmen of the Hyborian Age and is often listed alongside King Arthur, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Zoro as one of the greatest fictional sword fighters in history, which is a really cool thing to put on a resume. Conan has unusual strength, agility, and speed for just a human guy. He has lifted immense objects or enemies, even breaking the neck of a raging bull when he was still relatively young. Conan usually relies upon his lightning-fast reflexes in combat situations, and they very rarely have failed him. Through years of dealing with sorcerers, magicians, and witches, he has even developed a moderate level of resistance to magic and mind control spells, which definitely comes in handy in the first volume of Savage Avengers. While primarily known as a wandering sellsword, Conan progressively became a master tactician, leading entire armies into battle, and eventually Conan even became king of Aquilonia. Number 6. Black Knight. Born and raised in Gloucester, Massachusetts, Dane Whitman attended university, eventually obtaining a master's degree in physics, and that's not his superpower. The descendant of a long line of heroes who took up the mantle of the mysterious Black Knight, Whitman assumed the role after his uncle Nathan Garrett, who had taken up the name as a villain, perished in a battle with Iron Man. Dane became a hero, wielding the Power Lance. He has also wielded several swords, including the Ebony Blade, a powerful but cursed weapon forged from a meteorite which is capable of cutting through almost any substance, and he's even wielded Excalibur. While holding the Ebony Blade though, Black Knight is unable to be killed, even if he loses his head or something like that. Whitman also possesses the Sword of Light and Shield of Night, bestowed upon him by the Lady of the Lake. Dane Whitman has been a member of the Avengers and leader of Ultra Force, and is now the current king of Weird World, but that hasn't stopped him from his savage avenging.
Number 5. Queen Shuri. Shuri would go on to become the Queen and the Black Panther after T'Challa slipped into a coma in the main reality of Earth 616. Shuri has always wanted to become a fierce warrior ever since she was a child, and she is prepared to take on that role. Not only did she prove to be a great warrior, but she was a strong leader who refused to lay down arms in the war against Atlantis, just as her brother had before her. Shuri not only has the power of the heart-shaped herb, but her soul would travel to the Dajalia, and there she would receive extra training, and when she returned to her body, have extra abilities and powers as a result. So not only does Shuri have all the skills she developed herself growing up, but she also now can turn into a bird or birds, possesses a rock form, and can travel to the Dajalia plane and even reanimate the dead. So pretty powerful. Number 4. Ngozi. Ngozi comes to us from the alternate reality where after getting in the midst of a superpowered fight, she ends up becoming imbued with the powers of Venom and of Black Panther. She was originally a Nigerian track star who was left unable to walk after a severe bus accident. When Venom was fleeing from Rhino and then went on to kill Black Panther, the symbiote ended up finding her and bonding to Ngozi. Brave Ngozi was able to convince the symbiote to help her in defeating Rhino, and the Dora Milaje were so impressed by this show of strength and bravery that she was appointed as the new Black Panther. Number 3. MCU T'Challa. T'Challa in the cinematic universe was an extremely skilled warrior, but also should be well known for his perseverance in the face of insurmountable odds and his sense of honor. These are the main things that I think made him so strong and made him stand out as a ruler. But also, that impact suit though. The suit of course was a gift from Shuri in the MCU, so in a way it also just goes to show how strong the whole Black Panther family unit is there. While they don't touch on it as much in the MCU, it's also believed that T'Challa still has the genius level intellect that he is well known for in the comics, and that he is a master strategist and tactician, which would make sense considering he's likely been trained since birth for his role as ruler and as Black Panther. Number 2. Ghost Panther. This alternate version of Black Panther comes to us from the Warp World reality. As with all the creations on Warp World, he is a combination of two souls, two characters, Ghost Rider and Black Panther. Warp World was created when Gamora used the power of the Infinity Stones to fold the universe in half, merging together everything within it, so we got these sweet combination characters. I love it. T'Challa here possesses the powers of both of these heroes. He was a Wakandan prince who was exiled for his arrogance, and ended up becoming a motorcycle stuntman, taking up the show name Johnny Blaze. When an accident left him close to death, he was made an offer by Zarathos, great power in exchange for becoming her servant. T'Challa refused, but would later accept Zarathos' offer under different circumstances after learning his father had been murdered. Number 1. Killmonger. While T'Challa is an amazing ruler, has a brilliant mind, and is an impressive, unstoppable fighting force, Eric Killmonger from the comics has received a lot of power-ups over the last few years that would probably put him above MCU T'Challa, I would say. Eric has ingested the heart-shaped herb and lived to tell the tale, despite not being of the Royal Panther tribe bloodline and basically being put into a coma because of that. He's also gone to outer space, ruled the intergalactic empire of Wakanda as Emperor Killmonger, been resurrected, and been given even more strength, and also has bonded with a symbiote of Clintar. He is the definition of an overpowered villain. Who is
Number 10. Agent Anti-Venom. Everybody needs a good symbiote on their team, and if I was gonna pick one of them to put on my team, I think I'd be stupid to not pick Eugene Flash Thompson's Agent Venom. He is my favorite and probably the most reliable symbiotic superhero out there. The Savage Avengers have the benefit of getting the even better Agent Anti-Venom, which is basically the same thing with upgrades. So on top of the symbiotic powers awarded by the Venom symbiote, Agent Anti-Venom was also caustic to symbiotes, to the extent that prolonged physical contact will actually kill them. His touch also kills poisons and allows Flash to purge a person's body of impurities such as toxins, and diseases. But unlike the original Anti-Venom, Flash can also heal physical injuries and doesn't have the random power negation effect. Flash's past as a soldier and boxer plus all his symbiotic enhancements make him someone you just don't want to mess with. Number 9. Damon Hellstrom. As the son of the devil, it would honestly be kind of weird if Damon Hellstrom, otherwise known as Hellstorm, didn't make this list. Damon was born when the demon Satan decided to have a child with a human woman as a way of accessing even greater power. So already we're off to a less than cheerful start. But luckily, after learning of his heritage, Hellstrom decided to turn his back on his father and vowed to fight against him, even eventually slaying his father and taking lordship over the dimension of Hell. As a ruler of a dimension of Hell and son of Satan, Hellstrom has a Cambion physiology and wields crazy magical abilities, as well as commanding vast power in his own dimension, potentially meaning he can perform any magical feat. His physiology gives him super strength and durability, and due to his dark soul, he has shape-shifting and teleportation abilities as well as magical awareness. Hellstrom has also wielded a trident made of netheranium, which is a psycho-sensitive metal found only in his extra-dimensional realm, and the weapon is a medium through which magical energies can be amplified and projected. I wish I knew more about him before making this list because he's honestly kind of really cool. Number 8. Weapon H. Clayton Cortez is actually a newer addition to the Marvel landscape, but in my opinion, he is pretty cool. Clayton was a Marine who, after defecting, was subjected to Weapon X's H Division, which was basically asking the question, what would happen if we mixed the Hulk and Wolverine and made them cyborgs? H-Alpha, which was Clayton's designation, was different though. He retained more of his brain than the other subjects, and he was also not loyal to Director Stryker's cause. So, when this guy popped out of his incubation chamber, it didn't go too well for his creators. Are we surprised though? This Hulk-Wolverine hybrid has an adamantium bonded skeleton, which still allows him to transform from human form to Hulk-out form. And yes, he has an almost limitless level of strength, and the insane level of durability afforded to the Hulk, on top of the adamantium skeleton. And we haven't even got to the adamantium bone claws and studs, regenerative healing factor, and enhanced senses. The one who created him, Dr. Alba, suggested that Weapon H could actually end the life of every living being on this earth. That's pretty insane. Number 7. Juggernaut. The stepbrother of Charles Xavier, Cain Marko, started off on the wrong foot as a bully to his brother. So he already wasn't nice when he gained the powers of irresistible force embodiment. This basically means that once Cain begins to advance in a certain direction, it is virtually impossible to halt his movement. Tons of rocks and plasma discharge cannons have slowed his pace, but they cannot completely halt him. Only a few things have ever been able to stop Juggernaut. Thor's use of his God Blast is one of them. War Hulk with increased strength thanks to Apocalypse's grafting celestial tech to him, which allowed Hulk to increase his strength and stop the Juggernaut, is another. Cain gained this ability after bonding to the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. Sidorak being an immensely powerful entity described as both a god and a demon. The bands also granted Cain with near limitless strength and stamina and gave him the ability to summon his mystical armor at a moment's notice. When Cain was the avatar of Sidorak, these powers were boosted to even greater heights, which is just a scary thought. Number 6. Ghost Rider. If there is one thing I have learned from my time on Earth so far, it would be that you never make deals with people who look like, sound like, or call themselves the devil. There are multiple instances of this happening in the backstory of stunt motorcyclist Johnny Blaze. His mother tried to make a deal with Mephisto that would stop Johnny becoming the spirit of vengeance thanks to a family curse, and that didn't go as planned. And then, Johnny tried to make a deal with the same demon to save his surrogate father, which also did not go as planned and did not save him at all. Johnny was cursed with the power of the spirit of vengeance that inhabits his body, turning him into the Ghost Rider. While the Ghost Rider is in control, Johnny Blaze only influences its decisions to an extent as he takes the back seat, quote unquote. Doctor Strange has stated Johnny Blaze is simply a mortal and acts as a built-in safety, limiting the power of the Ghost Rider. Doctor Strange has also stated that when the demon Zarathos takes possession of the Ghost Rider's power are, for most intents and purposes, boundless and quote unquote godlike. Those powers include superhuman strength with potential limitlessness, superhuman stamina, superhuman immunity to basically all earthly physical damage, superhuman agility, regenerative healing, supernatural awareness, hellfire manipulation including infusion, projection, and constructs, firestorms, sin and soul manipulation, hell cycle symbiosis, dimensional travel, demon magic, mystical fiery chain projection, size alteration, and his key ability, the penance stare, causing any individual who stares into his eyes to see and feel every bit of pain they have ever inflicted on anyone in their entire lifetime for all eternity.
Number 5. Gorgon. I always forget that Gorgon was also Wolverine, but him being one of Norman Osborn's dark recruits and carrying the mantle would definitely make him one of the most powerful alternate versions of Wolverine around, because Gorgon is a pretty powerful and deadly guy, even if, as we learned during the Otherworld tournament in Ten of Swords, he isn't immune to the seduction of rock sirens. Gorgon is a masterful fighter and a powerful mutant who also has the ability to turn his opponents to stone, hence his name, Gorgon. He is a deadly force to be reckoned with, and I personally feel bad for all of the folks who have to challenge him whenever he's working security for the mutants of Krakoa. A lot of those people just are getting maimed left, right, and center. Ugh. Number 4. Daken. Daken, or Akihiro, is a deadly member of the Wolverine family, who spent his time as Wolverine when he was on the Dark Avengers. It was during this time that Daken attempted to take the Muramasa blade for himself to boost his power. He planned on having it bonded to his skeleton and coating his claws in it, and he wanted it so he could basically go kill Romulus. Remember Romulus, everyone? Whatever happened with that? He was successful in bonding the Muramasa blade to his claws, but didn't get to hold on to that power permanently. He would go on to battle and defeat both Scar and the Punisher, in fact seemingly killing Frank Castle, who would then go on to become Franken Castle for a time. One of Daken's most powerful abilities is his pheromone control, which can allow him to alter his opponent's mood. This is actually how he won against Scar, using pheromones to calm Scar down, which caused him to then transform in a way where he was just more chill. Number 3. Laura Kinney. Despite not even being an exact clone of Logan, X-23 is still one of the most powerful versions of Wolverine around out there. She became Wolverine in the all-new Wolverine series. Even today, it's more the mantle and look that Laura is known for, with both her and Logan currently using the same name, Wolverine, on Krakoa. So there are 2 Wolverines technically within the same continuity now. More recently, Wolverine was chosen to go on a mission inside the vault, along with Darwin and the resurrected Synch. The 3 were brought in to do so because of their extraordinary abilities and the fact that Synch could, in effect, use both of their powers himself. As we saw in issues 18 and 19 of the 2019 X-Men series, time moves differently in the vault, and in the end the mission ended up taking, for them, hundreds of years before they actually managed to complete it and get out. But despite aging, Laura did not slow down. Even in the old woman Laura future, where her cells were beginning to break down due to her being created originally from genetic engineering, Laura still proved to be a badass, using her last bit of time alive to defeat Doom and free the people of Latveria. Basically all around, X-23 is just like the best. She's so cool. Number 2, Dark Claw. Dark Claw is a combination of Marvel's Wolverine and DC's Batman, hailing from the Amalgam Comics universe. So yeah, you know he's OP. He's not only got a powerful regenerative healing factor, but is a master fighter, martial artist, and detective who also happens to have super enhanced senses. Imagine a master detective who is also a master tracker. There is no crime or mystery that he could not solve. Dark Claw is also known for being hyper intelligent besides, so he's basically got the whole package. He's also super wealthy in this reality as well, so he's got money to back up his vigilante antics, helping him to acquire high level tech and giving him access to various different gadgets, as well as his own Clawcopter, which this character has in place of a Batmobile. If you're both Wolverine and Batman, does that mean you just have like unlimited plot armor? Because I feel like both of those characters can never die just because they're so popular, so I feel like Dark Claw would be pretty unstoppable. Number 1, Old Man Phoenix. Obviously, one of the most powerful versions of Wolverine around has to be the one from the alternate future of King Thor, Earth 14412. Here, Wolverine goes on to become the Phoenix after seemingly dying along with everyone else on Earth at the hands of Loki. The Phoenix, however, chose him, and because of that, he lived again and was given an unimaginable amount of cosmic power. Logan mostly used this power to fend off villains, including Ultron and Loki, and to keep the Space Stone out of Loki's hands. Many years later, as Old Man Phoenix, he would team up with King Thor to protect the Earth from Dr. Doom, after it was given new life again. Doom in this reality was also immensely powerful, and although Logan could not be killed in battle, he chose to sacrifice himself to give Thor the power to defeat Doom, imbuing his hammer Mjolnir with the Phoenix Force. However, even after seemingly giving up his life here, he would still somehow end up being resurrected. Because Phoenix. Number 10, Agent 13. While Sharon Carter might just be your average run-of-the-mill human on paper, in reality she is anything but your run-of-the-mill human when it comes to her capabilities. When the Secret Avengers team was brought together following the disbanding of Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers and Hammer, Captain America decided not to resurrect S.H.I.E.L.D., but instead create his own sub-Avengers teams to help keep the world safe. One of these teams was the Secret Avengers, and Sharon Carter was entrusted to be his kind of co-captain for it. Sharon Carter is Agent 13. Sharon was inspired to become an agent by tales that her Aunt Peggy Carter told her of her own heroics, as well as Captain America's. She joined S.H.I.E.L.D. and is considered to be among one of their best agents, being an expert in hand-to-hand combat as well as firearms. More importantly, Sharon is also a great tactician, strategist, and leader. Number 9, Goliath. Despite the fact that he died on the team, Goliath was still a powerful member. Goliath is Bill Foster, who used to work with Dr. Hank Pym as his assistant. Being a brilliant scientist himself, Foster was able to duplicate the formula for Pym particles. Exposing himself to Pym particles, he was given the ability to alter his size, turning himself into a giant. Well, at will. He could turn himself into a giant and then shrink back down. Hence the name Goliath. Safely, Foster could grow to 25 feet in height. His increase in size also gave him a great increase in strength and somewhat in durability due to his change in mass. The formula also allows his body to change so that it can actually support the weight of his new and larger form while he is transformed. However, Goliath was vulnerable if he changed sizes multiple times in a shorter period, as it left him weakened somewhat and exhausted temporarily. It's hard on the body, basically. He died during his time serving on the Secret Avengers during the first Civil War, which was actually the first Secret Avengers team, but not the first volume of Secret Avengers, to be clear. To some, his death only strengthened their conviction for the cause, and to others, it acted as a warning to basically leave the team. And gave them a signal that like actually what they were doing maybe it wasn't a good idea. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn more about other sub-Avengers teams or more about the Secret Avengers, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. There's still lots of powerful members that I haven't talked about yet, so we could probably do a part 2 for this one. Number 8, Ant-Man. Ant-Man for the purpose of this list is actually Eric O'Grady, not Hank Pym or Scott Lang. During the Secret Avengers run that Ant-Man was a part of, the mantle was being held by Eric. If you thought Scott's past and thieving actions were questionable, Eric basically puts him to shame. Eric is probably the baddest of the Ant-Men in terms of his morals. Although I think all Ant-Men have made some morally morally questionable choices in their life. Still, O'Grady really takes the cake overall. Eric O'Grady is more commonly known as the Irredeemable Ant-Man, which was the name of his Ant-Man series, which really gives you an idea of what type of character he is. However, Eric had decided to turn over a new leaf and really try to make a difference in the world and become a hero, which was what motivated him to accept a position on the Secret Avengers team. Although, to be clear, up to this point he was still a hero, he just was kind of like a very morally corrupt hero. He possesses the Ant-Man suit, which gives him his powers, allowing him to change size, shrinking down, and later growing in size as well. He can also communicate with and command insects. Can also, I think, do some cool energy blasty stuff. So he's pretty powerful. But still, it's Eric O'Grady. It's not like Hank Ant-Man. I think those are two different levels. Number 7. Beast. Beast is Hank McCoy, one of the original members of the X-Men and also one of the brainiest members of the Secret Avengers. He ends up being recruited for his brilliant mind, but there is a lot that Beast brings to the table when it comes to his skill and his power set. In the comics, it's also been established that he is incredibly, impossibly agile and dexterous. He also possesses superhuman strength, endurance, and durability. He has healing factor, which allows him to recover more quickly than most from injuries, and also slows his aging. His senses are heightened, and he has strong telepathic defenses, which can protect him against even some of the strongest psionics in the world of Marvel. He also has a few unique powers, such as his ability to be aware of the time stream, which makes him more aware if something is altered or otherwise out of place within it. He's also believed to have some level of pheromone powers. In other words, you really shouldn't underestimate Beast. I don't say it enough, but he truly is a beast of a superhero who brings a lot to the table. I'm happy I was able to put him on this list. Do you agree that Hank should be above Ant-Man? I don't know, but I think he deserves it, you know? Not enough appreciation for Hank McCoy. Number 6. Moon Knight. Moon Knight was considered a questionable recruit to the post-Dark Reign Secret Avengers team the Cap brought together, and yet he still makes a lot of sense when you consider just how dangerous and how capable he is. Moon Knight might live with a dissociative identity disorder, but this often doesn't get in his way of completing whatever mission he is on in his own heroic life, nor does it often affect his ability to be a hero. Still, the other heroes on the team did personally question if Moon Knight was the right fit and the right pick. Moon Knight has access to amazing weapons and tech thanks to being outfitted by Stephen Grant, another prominent persona that resides in Mark Spector's psyche, who is a millionaire. He also has tons of intel, which is provided to him through one of his other personas, Jake Lockley, who's a cab driver. When it comes to his power set, he is an incredibly skilled fighter who has the favor of a god, the moon god Khonshu, on his side, and this also makes him hard to kill because usually Khonshu will just bring him back to life. He's also got enhanced strength, endurance, and agility at night, especially if it's a full moon. Moon power, baby! Get that moon power. Number 5. Ghost Rider. While Starbrand might have the greatest potential for power, and we aren't sure entirely what she's capable of just yet, Robbie Reyes is a bit more experienced when it comes to his powers. And even when he was less experienced, he actually accidentally killed one of the previous Starbrands, Kevin Connor, in Marvel Legacy. So for those reasons, I thought we should give him a bit of a boost when it comes to his ranking on this list. Robbie Reyes first appeared in the comics scene in 2014 in all-new Ghost Rider issue number 1. He is an all-new Ghost Rider, just like the series claims. During a street race gone wrong, Robbie was killed and ended up possessed by the ghost who haunted the car that he was driving, becoming the new Ghost Rider. He joined up with the Avengers recently in the comics, and I think he makes a great addition to the team. I personally love Robbie Reyes, so yeah, I'm here for it. Number 4. Winter Hulk. While Jennifer Walters as She-Hulk may have joined the Avengers long ago, first joining up back in the 80s, she's gone through a lot of changes since then. One recent and major one, which also returned her to her smaller, smarter, more playful and sassy, yet still very powerful form, happened recently in Avengers comics. For a brief time, She-Hulk, then known as just Hulk, ended up becoming Winter Hulk. Winter Hulk happened as a result of Jen allowing herself to be kidnapped by the Winter Guard of Russia to try and figure out what they were up to. What devious things are they planning? In the end, they attempted to mind wipe and brainwash Hulk to turn her into one of their agents. And they kinda succeeded. Although the process was interrupted, for a brief time Jen acted as their agent, Winter Hulk. However, as Winter Hulk, Jen still managed to fight against her programming, and alert her fellow Avengers when sent to attack Namor and Atlantis. In the end, Winter Hulk was forced to absorb a ton of radiation to protect the citizens of Atlantis. She managed to discharge the gamma radiation she had absorbed safely, and as a result was returned to her original form, ultimately deciding to retire from the Avengers team after these events and return to practicing law. And now we have a new She-Hulk series that I have heard nothing but good things about. I really need to get reading my first issue. Number 3. Phoenix. While Phoenix is definitely one of the most powerful superheroes to be on the Avengers team, her history with them is a bit more lengthy than you might initially think, which is why I ranked her a little bit lower on this list than I normally would. Phoenix herself was back on the original Avengers team, the prehistoric Avengers, or the Avengers of 1 million BC. This avatar for Phoenix was known as Firehair. However, Firehair only made her first appearance even in 2017 in the comics, so she's also kinda new in a way, even though she's super old. Does that make sense? Maya Lopez, aka Echo, is the current host of the Phoenix Force and the current Phoenix, who also finds herself on the Avengers team. Her being Phoenix is new, but her being on the Avengers team is not new. She rejoined the team in 2021 as Phoenix, which is quite new, like I said, but she actually was a member of the Avengers way back in 2005, when she was using the mantle of Ronin. Still, Maya being Phoenix and being part of the Avengers altogether is quite fresh right now, despite both the Phoenix Force's history with the prehistoric team and Maya's own history with the present day team. And of course, Phoenix is one of the most powerful entities in the entire Marvel universe. So despite her being kind of a new old combo thing, we have to show respect to the blazingly brilliant and powerful Maya Lopez, aka Echo, aka Phoenix, on this list. Number 2. Cable. Nathan Summers ended up joining the Avengers team at a time when Captain America was seeking to present a show of unity. Hence, Cable ended up being on the Avengers Unity division, which was meant to bring together Avengers and X-Men after events of Avengers vs. X-Men had created tension between the two superhero groups of Earth. Series-wise, the team was known as the Uncanny Avengers, with Cable joining up as early as issue number 4. Cable is an extremely powerful telepath and telekinetic due to him being the offspring of X-Men member Cyclops and his wife at the time, Mr. Sinister created clone of Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor. Despite Maddie being his birth mother, Jean has also been like a mother to Nate after she was implanted with the memories of basically raising him, making her kind of like his telepathically retcon mom, with Maddie becoming more like a surrogate mother in terms of her relationship with Nate, formerly known to her as Baby Christopher. Oh, baby Christopher. Number 1. Avenger Prime. Avenger Prime is kinda like all of the Avengers merged together. At least, that's what the original version of this character was like. They made their first appearance in the 2013 Mighty Avengers series, but another character with that name also recently reappeared in the 2021 Free Comic Book Day Avengers and Hulk comic. They showed up in the Avengers portion of that double feature story comic. Here, Avengers Prime is the leader of the Deathlock Avengers forces, who basically stands guard at the God Quarry, seeking to watch, protect, and warn against major multiversal threats and potential chronal collapses. Presumably, this is some version of Avenger Prime that decided to stay omnipotent and bonded together. At least that's what I'm assuming. Some people are assuming different things. When we saw Avenger Prime last, or an alternate version of them if you will, they were created using a ritual which allowed the team of Mighty Avengers to bond together. Technically, Avenger Prime stands to be the most powerful of the Avengers, as they should be made up of one or more teams or rosters potentially combined together. Now, of course, some people believe that Avenger Prime is actually some sort of alternate version or some future version of Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, but we don't really know for sure yet. Whoever they are though, they definitely seem to have a lot of time, a lot of power, and a lot of resources on their hands, especially for being a shadowy figure.
Kicking off the list at number 10. Ghost Spider. Coming from Earth 11638, aka the perfect world. Okay. This Peter Parker has a much brighter beginning, meaning Uncle Ben never actually passed away and gave the whole great responsibility speech. Instead, he encourages Peter to become a stronger Spider-Man, which sounds good on paper. It sounds like the ideal world. But does he recommend protein shakes and proper exercise and nutrition? No. See, Uncle Ben pushes Peter to abduct Spider-Man from other worlds and then absorb their life force via this portal that that Parker Technologies created. So he's a bit of a dick, this Uncle Ben. He's not really the nicest guy. Maybe he's fine, I don't know. This whole system seems a little bit whack. Now eventually Earth 616 Spider-Man shows up. They both hear about each other. It's interesting because Uncle Ben poisons our Peter and then he wakes up confused and they fight it out, and our Peter Parker comes out on top, luckily, with the perfect Amazing Spider getting his soul sucked into that machine. Now the perfect Spider-Man spirit was then trapped in the underworld like hell, and then from here it only gets more strange. Well, rather it gets more Banner. See, Banner was the current Sorcerer Supreme at this time, so he ended up freeing Peter in his astral form, but then Peter absorbed all those spirits of the damned while he was down there, so when he came back up, this perfect spider was now Ghost Spider. Number 9, Old Man Spider. Ezekiel Sims from Earth 4, aka Old Man Spider, took over the web-slinging spot after Peter Parker lost his life to Morlun. Now, Ezekiel first appeared in Edge of Spider-Verse issue 5. He was actually recruited by Spider UK, who I'll talk about a little bit later, to go against Morlun and the Inheritors. Now, Ezekiel rescued Ben Reilly and Kane from the Inheritors, which is awesome, and then a bunch of other spider beings were then recruited, but Deimos tracked them down and snapped this Spider-Man's neck. He caught him off guard. Brutal. And in his last words, he revealed his true self and told Peter to protect Silk, aka the Bride. All that matters. What a beautiful last sentence. We love impactful last words here at Top 10 Nerd. It's the best. You know what else we like? We like when you like our videos. Literally, go and give this video a thumbs up and it will do wonders for our channel. We're trying our best, so, you know, all we ask is for a little click. Maybe subscribe, maybe like, maybe notifications if you're feeling good. I don't know. Let's get back to the list. Number 8, Spider UK. Here he is, Billy Braddock himself. I told you I'd talk about him. He began his life as Captain Britain, actually, before he was webbing people up. So he's actually rocking both teams. He's a busy guy. He's on the Captain Britain team and then the Spider Army. He made his first appearance in Edge of Spider-Verse issue 2 over on Earth 833. Now, this Spider-Man is one of my favorite versions. His arc is so fun. He can hop between dimensions whenever he chooses, and then after the defeat of the Inheritors, spoilers, he keeps an eye on Earth 3145, and then during the Spider-Geddon storyline, in issue 2, Spider UK dies in an explosion and is buried in England on Earth 803, the home of Lady Spider, who loved the idea of Spider UK being buried in the same cemetery as her parents because she loved him like a brother, of course. Brother zoned even after death. He's down there like, really? Okay. That's a good one. Number 7, Spider-Man. Literally, this gets a little gross. Now imagine if Spider-Man had more spider than man when he was bit. That's what happened to Patton Parnell when he first entered comics in Edge of Spider-Verse issue 4. See, Patton lived a pretty dark life. He lived with an abusive Uncle Ted. He would perform horrible experiments on animals, and he spied on his neighbor Sarah Jane. So it's not a healthy system that he's got going on here in any way, really. One day, Sarah Jane and Patton went to Alcorp Industries in hopes of freeing all these test animals, but that's when Patton saw this red radioactive spider. He was like, I want to touch it. And then he did, got bit, and then got kicked out. Now, overnight, he didn't get jacked. His vision didn't get better. He wasn't webbing up Dr. Peppers and lamps. When he got his abilities, he started eating everything. He ate a mouse, and then he ate a cat, and then when Uncle Ted walked in, he was like, what's up? Now, this version is, of course, extremely powerful, but he's also extremely dark. We love the balance. We love balance. Number 6, Spider Cyborg. Coming from Earth 2818, this version is a dark future Spider-Man. I mean, look at him, of course, there's some sort of future-ness going on here. He made his first debut in Superior Spider-Man issue 33. Now, it's Peter Parker if he got cybernetic additions. It's badass. That's basically all it is. His one eye can zoom in, go all tactical. The claws can certainly leave a mark. And one of the most remarkable features, his arm cannon, his sonic arm cannon, that's definitely a plus. Now, before Karn came to Earth 2818, our Superior Spider-Man warned him, and then when Kane finally did show up, Superior Spider-Man and some other webbed friends joined the battle. His left eye being a red lens is actually a nod to his appearance early on in the 90s in Spider-Man issue 21, titled Dealing Arms.
Number 5, Devil Dinosaur. Okay, look, he ain't on the team at all, really, but he did kind of help them unintentionally, and I also really want to talk about this dino since I haven't before, so Devil Dinosaur. He's basically just a big, red, intelligent T-Rex from another universe. Not intelligent enough to talk or anything, but he understands the situations he's in, can understand human language, and even has some telepathic connection with certain characters. As for the Savage Avengers, in Volume 2, Issue 2, the Savage heroes have been sent back in time to the Hyborian era, and they end up fighting Devil Dinosaur in a coliseum. That is, until they sort of kind of not really work together to bust out of there. He doesn't have many powers other than super intelligence and strength, but he is a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which I can imagine is very helpful. Number 4, Wolverine. This mutant needs almost no introduction, being one of the most recognizable characters in Marvel's lineup. James Logan Howlett is a long-lived Canadian mutant with the rage of a beast and the soul of a samurai. His mysterious past is filled with blood, war, and betrayal, creating one of the greatest characters Marvel has ever made. If you don't already know his powers, Wolverine has an accelerated healing factor, keenly enhanced senses, and bone claws in each hand, which were improved upon when his whole skeleton, including the claws, were coated in adamantium, one of the hardest metals on Earth. This rage-filled samurai mutant Canadian joined up with the Savage Avengers in 2020 to help fight against Cool and Gath, and he's honestly a great addition to every team he joins. So let's hear some love for Wolverine! Yeah! Woo! Okay. Moving on. Number 3, the Venom symbiote. I say specifically the symbiote because at this time Eddie Brock and Venom were having a bit of a rough period and had separated from each other for the time being. At least that's what I've gathered from reading. Either way, alerted to the suffering of another member of his species at the hands of Cool and Gath, the Venom symbiote arrived where the future Savage Avengers were at to help Logan, the Punisher, Elektra, and Dr. Voodoo fight the eldritch god Cool and Gath was trying to summon. Exposure to the god's cosmic radiation caused the Venom symbiote to take on the form of a massive dragon, letting it hold its own against the god in combat. The symbiote would do its best to help in the fight, saving the other members of its species in the process. But he's Venom! We all know how cool he is. I don't really have to explain this to you. I hope. Number 2, Dagger. When her boyfriend Rob left for college, Tandy Bowen, a 16-year-old girl who grew up in Shaker Heights, Ohio, left home on a bus for New York City. While wandering the streets, a man tried to mug her, but she was rescued by Tyrone Johnson, a fellow runaway teen. She bought Tyrone food and the two grew to care about each other. But when a guy named Simon Marshall rounded up a bunch of the city's teen runaways offering them food and shelter, Tandy agreed to go, being kind of naive. And Tyrone went with her because he wanted to protect Tandy, which was good because Tyrone was right to be suspicious. The runaway teens were knocked unconscious by Marshall's men and injected with an experimental substance. The two were the only teens who survived and soon developed powers. For Tandy, she can generate a form of living light, which is actually life force that she uses most commonly in the form of psionic light daggers, which travel wherever she wills them and which drain living beings of life force. Her light daggers also have the capacity to cure certain persons of substance addiction, which is an interesting side effect. Tandy can also project her light into Cloak's dimension to feed his quote-unquote hunger. She's unharmed when traveling through his dimension and can pass this protection to others, which leads me to the next spot. Number 1, Cloak. Tyrone Johnson is the dark half of the vigilante duo known as Cloak and Dagger. After a substance-related experiment awakened his powers, he became a living personification of darkness. Tyrone grew up in South Boston and had a really bad stuttering condition, which inadvertently caused him to be unable to save his friend's life. Tyrone ran away from the home because of the guilt of that, and he ended up in New York City's ports, desperate for food and searching for someone to rob. Instead, he found Tandy Bowen, another runaway, and ironically prevented her from being robbed. They eventually were subjected to the experimental substance that caused them to gain their powers. For Cloak, he has the ability to manipulate dark force energy and access the dimension that it comes from, which he uses to do things like creating localized fields of impenetrable darkness, creating mobile, solid tendrils of darkness, hiding in shadows, becoming intangible, pulling people into the dark force dimension, trapping them there, and teleporting himself and others by taking an interdimensional shortcut through the dark force dimension. Clearly, very useful.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Longbow. Coming from Earth 398, Longbow was a version of Clint whose reality was altered by Morgan Le Fay in Avengers Volume 3. The Queen's Vengeance storyline is so fun. I mean, just medieval stuff in general is so exciting. Especially archers back in those times, it's fascinating. They would just point to the sky and hope and be like, did we win? I don't know what happened. So when Hawkeye is altered, he becomes Longbow. But the fun part here is that Hawkeye's original 616 outfit was already quite mythical. He had the cowl, the long tunic, the purple vibes, so not much changed here for him. Hawkeye is actually pleased with his outfit upgrade, so are we. Him and Cap ride into the castle on horseback, which is amazing as is, and then we meet the rest of our heroes. They were able to set reality back to normal by having the Scarlet Witch combine her powers with the other Avengers and then push all that power right into Wonder Man. Longbow was one of the first to break free from Morgan Le Fay's spell. Although I kinda wish he stuck around for a bit longer, I don't know. He can stay like that forever. I love it. Number 9, Old Man Hawkeye. Coming from Earth 807-128, the Old Man Logan future where supervillains have taken over the world, and Hawkeye led other Avengers to Las Vegas as well as the Thunderbolts, but when they got there, the Thunderbolts betrayed the entire team and everybody bit the dust. It was horrible. Baron Zemo took out Black Widow but purposely spared Hawkeye just to torment him. Guy's a freak. Cut to decades later, he has the long white hair, he's really old now, he's ducking out in the woods, but he was soon hired by Jebediah Hammer to guard a delivery trip across South Dakota. During the trip, they were ambushed by the Madrox gang and Hawkeye got most of them, but he missed the last shot. His glaucoma was now advancing, and give it a few months' time, he would be fully blind. So his last mission with eyesight was to see his family and then go after said Thunderbolts with Kate Bishop by his side. And of course, Old Man Hawkeye is a vital asset in the Old Man Logan storyline where Clint recruits Logan to help him deliver a package to New Babylon. Also, fully blind. And before we continue on with this list, if you're loving this content, show us and hit that thumbs up. That way we know to give you some more Hawkeye, nerdy goodness, whatever the case is. You know what to do. Thank you so much. Back to the list. Number 8, Bullseye. One of my favorite versions of Hawkeye, well, it's actually not Hawkeye at all. It's a villain. It's Bullseye. 2 eyes. One's bull, one's hawk. You get it. But the world doesn't know that. That's the scary part. Coming from the Dark Reign storyline where Norman Osborn takes control of the Avengers. It's a ride. All these supervillains dressed up as Earth's mightiest. It's all a big lie, but you know what? They do look pretty good. I will admit. When the Dark Avengers were fighting a rogue Hulkbuster robot, Hawkeye handled the pilot in, well, a non-heroic way. After that point, the robot fell and subsequently took out 46 more civilians. That's a lot of death in a matter of 30 seconds. Later on, he saw a woman being robbed by 3 dudes and he just took out everybody instead of saving her. It's horrible. Luckily, a news crew saw this and they filmed the attack, but Hawkeye shot an arrow into the helicopter and blew it up to smithereens. This is all bad, just all bad. Powerful, but pretty bad nonetheless. Number 7, Ronin. If you saw the recent Hawkeye trailer, it's clear that Clint will have to face the music. He sported a new look in Endgame, took off some heads, he was real bad, but now everybody got snapped back and he's unretiring. Again. This Ronin character comes from the New Avengers issue 27. See, Hawkeye was originally killed off but later resurrected at the end of House of M. So when he rejoins the team, he had this new look to him. It was quite a big character change in the MCU, but as far as the comics went, there weren't a lot of fans of the Ronin look. Maybe that's why everybody's after him in the new show. They don't like his Ronin outfit. They're like, cut your hair. Please. Also the tattoos. Nothing says Christmas than Hawkeye rocking sleeves and whipping arrows through people's necks. Let's do it. Deck the halls. Number 6, Clint Barton Jr. AKA Mustang. This version came from What If Volume 2, issue 114. Clint Barton Jr. was the son of Hawkeye and also Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk. Secret Wars 25 years later. What if our heroes never left Battleworld? Well, it doesn't sound like they would be too bored because all the heroes and villains called a truce and then they settled down, all started hooking up with each other and started families in the city of Denver that was making up part of the planet. As Odin would say, Denver is not a place, it's a people. Denver, not Asgard, Denver. Not everybody was so chill though. I mean, the son of Dr. Doom and Enchantress, of course, was a little bit evil, so he gathered all the children of villains and there was a little fight, a little scrap happened. But when the Hulk created a device to return to Earth, all the kids returned only to find that Sentinels have now taken over and wiped out most of the planet's mutants. The kids take down one of them and then they decide that they're going to take down all the other ones on Earth, finally finding their true purpose 25 years later.
Number 5, Magic. Ileana Rasputina is a mutant sorceress who rules the demonic realm known as Limbo. She was taken to Limbo by Belasco, and in the few seconds that passed on Earth, Ileana aged years in Limbo. Time she spent mastering different dark arts. Magic also exhibited the mutant ability to mentally control stepping discs that are connected to Limbo and allow her and others to teleport across interstellar distances, space, and time. She joined the New Mutants and she has gone on to eventually join the ranks of the X-Men, and has been mentored by Doctor Strange, advancing her magical abilities even further, which is quite a statement as she is the Sorceress Supreme in her Limbo dimension, having been taught black magic by Belasco and white magic from an alternate Aurora Monroe. And she was among those who were considered for becoming the new Sorcerer Supreme of Earth 616. Number 4, Dr. Voodoo. Jericho Drum is the master practitioner of voodoo, white magic, according to the Book of Vishanti, and he has been stated as one of the most powerful mystic practitioners on the planet. Which is why it makes sense that he was the one to actually become the new Sorcerer Supreme for a while in Doctor Strange's place after the Eye of Agamotto deemed that he possesses a pure heart and a clean soul. Now his main magical ability allows him to interact with spirits for a number of different effects. He can summon skeletons, the spirits of the dead, and manipulate zombies with his necromancy. He can manipulate biological forces like animals and trees, as well as heal others, and he has even removed Frank Castle's mouth one time, which was pretty freaky. He has a degree of pyrokinesis, can control a voodoo, smoke/mist, and can manipulate and control people's souls. Now that is all on top of the normal mystical abilities he possesses through spells that were increased in potential when he was trained by Doctor Strange and when he became Sorcerer Supreme. Number 3. Dr. Doom. Victor Von Doom has been a staple villain in the worlds of Marvel Comics since 1962. But there is more to this incredibly powerful, super intelligent, and charismatic Latvian monarch. He has helped the forces of good on several occasions, even if it was for selfish ends, and has recently reformed and even become a hero. He held the power cosmic and the power of the Beyonder twice, becoming God King of Battleworld the second time. He is an incredibly capable character. Dr. Victor Von Doom was introduced to magic by his mother, but he expanded his knowledge by going through time and training with characters like Morgana Le Fay. He has proved capable of mystical blasts, force fields, ensnaring, banishing, and portals, summoning entities and demonic creatures, casting and reversing spells, teleportation, dimensional travel, healing of himself and others, time travel, power absorption, elemental manipulation, telekinesis, as well as power nullification. He also hones psionic abilities such as mind transference, hypnotism, and technopathy. He has been considered for the role of Sorcerer Supreme and is just one of the best villains Marvel has ever created. Number 2. Doctor Strange. Dr. Stephen Strange. His magical feats are almost unmatched by any other. He is among the most adept magic user in the multiverse and has shown it many times. When he first came on the scene, and for a long while, he was so insanely powerful that he was capable of doing pretty much anything he wanted. It got to the point that Marvel even decided to depower him. He has passed a test in which he accepted death, which meant he now no longer ages and can only be de-lifed by external means, meaning he is essentially immortal. His energy blasts are capable of destroying moons and planets. You remember when I listed all the things Dr. Doom can do? Well, Strange can do all of them, probably better, and more. He has mastered the words of the Black Priest, allowing him to distort reality. He frequently calls on the divine empowerment and extra-dimensional energy of mystical and non-mystical beings in multiple dimensions to power his spells, and he can use black magic like taking the power of another entity by force of will. But he has stopped using that kind of magic, so it's whatever. He is the defender of reality and has put together so many different crazy teams, including this one. Number 1. Kang the Conqueror. Nathaniel Richards was born on the 30th century Earth of Reality 6311, where humanity never went into the Dark Ages. In this reality, after centuries of technological advancement and war, peace was finally brought to the Earth by a time traveler from Earth 616, also named Nathaniel Richards, known as the legendary Benefactor. Now, the Nathaniel Richards born to the 6311 reality is said to be a descendant of the Benefactor through Reed Richards, although he may be descended from Dr. Doom. So already we're off to a confusing start, and that's before we even get into the seemingly endless versions of him by different names and from different realities that are littered throughout Marvel Comics and appear in the 616 reality. Basically, after landing in the 40th century, Nathaniel reinvented himself as Kang the Conqueror, conquering the Earth, then the galaxy, and then setting his sight on other times and realities. Apart from his advanced physiology and exceptional mind, Kang's battle armor is produced from a rare synthetic alloy from the 40th century and responds to his subconscious thoughts. It grants him abilities including enhanced strength, durability withstanding even a nuclear strike at point-blank range, anti-gravity, video communication, time travel, concussive bolts, summoning any number of weapons which are transported to him through the time stream instantly, electric shocks, hover pads, survival kits, and body transference. He is an Avengers level threat and easily takes any of the top spots on this list.
And a 10, Yellow Jacket. For several years, Tim had been in love with Janet Van Dyne, but because of his repressed personality and her abundant wealth, he resisted marrying her. One day while working in his laboratory though, whilst thinking of the fact that he wanted to marry Van Dyne but couldn't, Pym accidentally dropped and smashed some vials containing various unknown gases. These released gases wreaked a radical temporary personality change for Pym, which could be seen as like a severe case of schizophrenia. He took on the new identity of the Yellow Jacket, claimed that he had murdered Henry Pym, kidnapped Van Dyne, and proposed to her, as Pym had long wanted to do. Realizing that Yellow Jacket was really Pym, Van Dyne decided to play along, fearing that she would worsen his psychological condition if she did otherwise. Yeah, the Avengers, not suspecting at first, were actually shocked to hear that she said yes to the proposal, but Van Dyne and Pym, as Yellow Jacket, were married at Avengers Mansion amidst an assembled group of Avengers who were active at the time, as well as some villains who were hiding and secretly pretending to be caterers. In at 9, Ultimate Ant-Man. Hank Pym was a brilliant but mentally fragile scientist who was married to Janet Pym, but in this reality he was chosen to work on the Super Soldier project for S.H.I.E.L.D. under Nick Fury. Hank was also the superhero giant man, able to grow to 59 feet and 11 inches, with 60 feet being the point where the human skeleton cannot support the actual mass of the body. He gained his powers after experimenting on the blood of his wife Jan, who was actually a mutant. This guy though is a demon, able to go toe to toe with Cap and being willing to experiment on his wife without her consent. And this is even how, like I said, he got his original powers in this universe. This guy is also an absolute freak with a lack of morals. And his ability as a part of like the Super Soldier program are certainly interesting. That's why he gets a spot on this list, okay? However, he's not as bad as some other versions of Ant-Man on this list, so fasten your seatbelts. In at 8, Pincer. Scott Lang of Earth 9907 is certainly an interesting one. Earth 9907 is an other-dimensional Earth where the Red Skull won World War II, and Victor Von Doom now leads the planet with a totalitarian military rule. On this planet, Scott Lang was a stuttering, sadistic madman who killed his own daughter at the request of Von Doom after Cassandra refused to swear allegiance. He also served with the Thunder Guard and worked with Henry Pym, where he learned of the Pym particles. When the new generation of Avengers crossed over into this alternate world, Pincer was all too happy to have the chance to kill his daughter all over again. Yeah, because she was an Avenger known as Stinger. His first chance was cut short through the interference of American Dream, but when he got his second chance, Stinger was able to defeat him. Plus, this guy just looks freaky as hell. His skin's all pink. He looks crazy. And at 7, Black Ant. Black Ant was a life model decoy of the third Ant-Man who was killed in a battle against the Descendants. He was sent to join the Avengers on behalf of the Descendants as a double agent. Despite his programming though, the Black Ant still fought as Ant-Man with no obvious differences. During a fight against the Masters of Evil, because he was a robot, he was not affected by the control of the Serpent Crown. And as one of the only 2 Avengers free of the Taskmaster's influence, he and Venom battled the criminals and freed their teammates. So already, apparently being a robot man, a la seemingly any character in FNAF, already makes you have a leg up on the competition. Black Ant's heroic rescue of the team was short-lived though, as Black Widow was quick to deduce that Black Ant was in fact now a robot working for the Descendants. Somehow. I'm not quite sure how she actually picked up on that one, but like maybe she saw like a wire and some gears poking out of his ass or something. I don't get how she figured it out. But since Ant-Man had just saved the team, Hawkeye and the rest of the Avengers actually just refused to believe her accusations, so she quit the team in protest. Temper tantrums, we love them. And at 6, Dwight Barrett. Dwight Barrett was a prodigy child who passed most of his time at Josie's bar, where his uncle Turk Barrett watched over him while he played around with the Ant-Man helmet that he was given as a gift. After the Venom symbiote-clad Madroxes killed his uncle for helping Hawkeye against them though, Dwight used his Ant-Man helmet to rescue Hawkeye and escape with him to the Bishop Refuge, a hidden region of the wastelands where Hawkeye thought that they would be safe. Unbeknownst to them, however, a piece of the Venom symbiote had actually stuck itself to the car they used to escape, allowing the creature to track them down. The Venoms were ultimately defeated by Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, while Dwight stayed at the Bishop Refuge with the orphans who lived there. However, 5 years after these events, we see the events of Old Man Logan's series. Dwight had claimed a bridge and started to charge a toll to use it. If whomever wanted to cross the bridge didn't actually pay what he asked, he would use the Ant-Man helmet to command 1 million ants into killing them. So You either pay or you pay with your life. Hawkeye and Logan were some of those who actually paid in order to cross the bridge, but yeah, being able to reverse engineer an Ant-Man helmet at 8 years old, yeah, you get on this list, bro.
Number 5. War Machine. War Machine is James Rhodes, who gets his powers from his Iron Man made armor. Donning this armor, he goes by the mantle of War Machine typically, but has also been known to wear the Iron Patriot armor and also use that moniker as well. In fact, during his time on the Secret Avengers team, Rhodey's War Machine armor received an upgrade that allowed him to phase and appear invisible, but he would actually give up the War Machine mantle to later become Iron Man in secret, and then end up later leaving the Secret Avengers team when he decided to take up the Iron Patriot armor and that name. Rhodey might get his powers from his suit, but the skills and knowledge which he uses to pilot them is all his own. So even without his armor, he's pretty powerful. I mean, he's a guy, but he's still a powerful guy. Also, he has lots of suits, so he also powerful in his suits of armor. Number 4. Black Widow. Black Widow makes for a great addition to Captain America's Secret Avengers team that is formed following the end of Norman Osborn's Dark Reign. This team was one that Captain America brought together to basically serve as his Black Ops team. Their main mission was to help clean up all the messes that Norman Osborn had left about during his time ruling Hammer and the Dark Avengers. Considering that Natasha is a highly skilled and trained assassin who also has extensively reflected on the moral dilemma that comes attached to things like assassinating people and Black Ops, she makes a great fit. She is extremely experienced with walking that fine line between getting less savory jobs done, but also making sure you don't lose yourself and that you only do as much as is really necessary. Not only is she highly trained and skilled, but it's also implied that she technically has superpowers after being exposed to a Russian variation of the super soldier serum during her time in the Red Room. It's how she can stay so youthful and she looks so young forever. That Russian super soldier serum. Making sense of how is Black Widow even still alive and what is going on. Number 3. Valkyrie. Brunhilde is Valkyrie, or at least she was Valkyrie. Now there's another Valkyrie, and actually there's kind of like other Valkyries, multiple Valkyries, but I digress. Brunhilde is also Valkyrie in the comics. She ended up joining the Secret Avengers after her apparent death during the Fear Itself event. As a character, she dies quite a bit to be honest, but she usually gets to return, which is awesome. As an Asgardian, Brunhilde has powers that come from just being of Asgard. She has superhuman strength, speed, durability, reflexes, has slowed aging and an increased lifespan, and of course she can self-heal. Although as I said, that doesn't always save her from dying, which happens. Number 2. Captain America. Probably one of the most important members of the Secret Avengers team at almost all times is Captain America. Captain America was the founder of the team the first time around and formed it to help fight back against Iron Man and the Superhuman Registration Act during Civil War. It was called Secret Avengers because of the fact that the team had to be kept secret. Otherwise they would have been taken away and imprisoned due to the SRA or the SHRA. I don't know if superhuman, if those are their own letters or not. Captain America is a super soldier, a strong and motivational leader who also has super strength, speed, agility, speed, I said speed twice, but he's really speedy, I guess, and endurance, all thanks to him being exposed to the super soldier serum years ago in World War II. So he's not just super valuable as a leader, but he's also super powerful in general. Also, he's Captain freaking America. That's just having that name. I feel like if you're Captain America already, you get some kind of power level just from people being like, oh, it's Captain America. Number 1. Nova. Nova is Richard Rider. He basically came on to act as a Secret Avengers powerhouse when Captain America originally banded this team together after Hammer was disbanded, which I think means he gets our top spot by default. Also, Nova is just insanely powerful due to him being the host of the Nova Force. He only ended up sticking around for the first arc of the first Secret Avengers series volume, as he had to go do some cosmic stuff and he was pulled away, but he was still a member for a time, so we can still count him. Nova is insanely strong, fast, durable, can self-heal, can fly, also having the ability to fly through space, and he's super smart, as he has access to the Xandarian world mind, basically giving him access to all the knowledge of Xandar. So yeah, he's got it all, baby. He's got the strength, he's got the wits, he's got that sweet look in his awesome suit with his awesome helmet. He's got it all. Except he doesn't have the time to be on the Secret Avengers for too long. That's what he doesn't have. He lacks time.